What is up, everybody? Welcome to Stat Diggers, where we go balls deep into this week's UFC card. This week we have UFC Vegas 35, Giga Chikadze going against Edson Barboza. And I'm not going to lie, I love this card. I think this card is phenomenal. Tons of great fights on it, tons of exciting fights, and a ton of great betting opportunities as well. As always, looking forward to talking through the fights with Uncle Weezy. Looking forward to you guys hanging out in the chat as always. So before we get started, if you guys can leave a like, also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio, closing in on that 10K subscribers on Pub Sports, getting really close to that. Hopefully hit that in the near future, but also leave a like. It is always much appreciated. I see you guys in the chat. Thank you so much for hanging out every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. Let's see who we got in here. First one in the chat was Real Deal Prime. What is up, Real Deal? We got the General taking notes in there. Josh in the chat as well. Gaming Wolf, Blaze Towns fan. We also have Sosa in the chat, Smooth Cat as well. Joshua in there. Thank you all so much for hanging out. We have JSJ23 as well. Blades in there. And then Chris. What's up, Chris? How you doing? Hopefully you did well last night. Before we get started, I'm going to do a quick recap of last night's card, UFC Vegas 34, and then I'll kick it over to Uncle Weezy. Let him say what's up and then let him recap his night as well. So last night was UFC Vegas 34. I'll be honest, it was a tough card. It was a very tough card. Shout out to anybody that made money last night. And me and Uncle Weezy were saying all week, this was not the card to go all in. This was not the card to empty the bankroll. This was not the card to do parlays. But luckily, I was able to make it out alive. Not only alive, but make it out with some profit as well. So my three straight bets I did have was Vince Pichel, Brian Kelleher, which was my biggest play, 2 units, -170, and then Roosevelt Roberts. And then hit a couple props, had Bay Malecki, Jose Nunez fight doesn't go to decision, +135. Ramiz Brahimaj inside the distance, +165. And also Brahimaj wins by submission, which hit as well. Ultimately ended up the night 0.76 units. Nothing crazy, but man, I'm very happy with that. I enjoyed the fights. I thought the fights were awesome and made a little bit of money on the way. But yeah, like I said, if you guys made it out alive last night, congrats to you. A lot of fights did not play out how we expected. That Madsen Guida fight was really weird, considering Madsen shot for maybe one takedown. But altogether, like, I enjoyed the fights. I barely have a voice today because I was screaming, especially for the Pichel fight. Pichel pumped me up. That guy, they call him from hell for a reason. They call him from hell for a reason. The guy is a beast there. But yeah, good card. Made it out some profit. Had a great summer. Hopefully ending the summer right. And I think I'm up like 18.5 units this summer. So I think this is the last card of the summer as well. So looking to end it with a bang here. So Uncle Weezy, what is up? How'd you do last night? And are you looking forward to this card?
Great night for me last night. I'm really proud of myself that I exercised good discipline and bankroll management. Really only had 3 bets, a 1-unit bet on Vince Pichel money line. I had a 2.5-unit bet on the Madsen money line, and I had a 0.5 unit on Madsen inside the distance. So 2 out of those 3 bets cashed. And then I put another 0.5 unit on Cannonier in the main event. So I had 3 out of 4 cash overall, finished up over 2 units. Good week for me, but I was really proud of myself that I didn't have 8 or 9 bets out there because, you know, if you got on Malecki, if you got on Roosevelt Roberts, if you got on Trevin Jones, you know, there were quite a few, you know, favorites that didn't get the job done. So I was just kind of happy to keep it small. The bets that I did make worked out, but that Madsen fight was really close. You know, he didn't look -160 to me. It's one of those bets that you cash it and then you try to learn from it because, you know, since you bet on the guy that was -160 and he didn't look -160, you just got to say, yeah, not the best bet. It cashed. We move on to this week. The research is ready. The spreadsheets are ready. There's a lot of spots that I already like. There's some numbers in these fights that are just jumping off the page at me. Can't wait to share it with all you guys. We got to shave some bookie ass this week, and I am seeing some spots, Brady. We got to get into it, man.
Yeah, I'm seeing some spots as well. Have not bet anything yet. I'm going to wait, talk it over with you, talk it over with the chat, and then probably pull the trigger on some things as well. And looks like some bookies have not even gotten lines out on some of these tough fights yet. Still waiting for FanDuel, DraftKings, and some other books to get those out there. So hopefully the bookies get some lines out very soon. It looks like we do have the fight goes or fight doesn't go to look off of as well on some books. So yeah, should be a fun card and it should be a very fun show, Weezy. So I say we shall get started. We see Billy in the chat. What's up, Billy? How you doing? Nigel Lee in the chat as well. What's up, Nigel? And of course, Dan. It would not be a show without Dan. And also Noah Allen in the chat. What is up, Noah, as well? So let's get into it here, and we will start with the first fight of the night in a fight that I am really looking forward to, Weezy. We have Mana Martinez making his UFC debut going against Guido Canetti. And Mana Martinez, he is 25 years old, 5'10", 70-inch reach, going against Guido Connetti, who is 41 years old, 5'6", 68-inch reach. Yes, I said that right. Guido Connetti, he is 41 years old. When I saw that, I was shocked. And he's like 41 and a half years old. I think he turns 42 in December as well. So huge age gap, but 16-year age gap between these two. And not only that, Mana Martinez is going to be the bigger fighter. Mana Martinez is going to have a 4-inch height advantage, and he's also going to have a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Guido Connetti, we have not seen him for about a year. His last fight, he did lose by knockout against Danat Baccarel. Prior to that, in 2018, lost by submission against Marlon Vera, a fight where it looked like he got hurt bad in that second round by Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera was able to submit him. He did have a win over Diego Rivas by decision, a loss by submission to Kung Ho Kong, and then a win over Hugo Viana by decision. He is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. As far as Mana Martinez, he is making his UFC debut. He has 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He did knock out Ricky Turcios, who is actually fighting on this card as well, tough fighter, and then knocked out David Vieira. Lost by submission on the Contender Series to Draco Rodriguez in a fight that did not last long. Draco took him down right away. Mana was able to reverse him, get on top, but found himself into a triangle. I think Draco did end it with like an armbar eventually as well. And then he goes on to get 2 knockout wins in a row. And this guy's a finisher, man. Mana Martinez is a very dangerous fighter, a 100% finish rate, majority of them coming in the first round. This guy has so much power. I've seen him knock out guys with jabs, and going against a guy in Guido Canetti, 41 years old, getting close to 42 years old, bad striking defense, bad chin. I think it's going to be a very, very long night or a very short night for Guido Canetti. So, Uncle Weezy, what stuck out to you for this one?
The first thing that sticks out here is that Guido Connetti is 41 years old, man, and Mana Martinez is 25. You don't see a lot of UFC fights where there is a 16-year age difference, And as we know, bantamweights don't hit their prime right around the age of 41. That's about 8 years past the prime for any bantamweight. So, yeah, this one, if you just kind of look at the numbers from top to bottom, this is the kind of fight that has ass shaving written all over it, man. And it's going to definitely be in the hopper, so to speak, when it comes to picking an ass shaving of the week. So let's talk about measurables. Mana Martinez is 16 years younger. He's 4 inches taller, and he has a 2-inch reach advantage. So he's just the bigger, younger, more fresh guy here. When we talk about experience, Guido Connetti, even though he's 16 years older, only has 3 more fights as a pro. He has 25 more minutes of cage time, almost 9 more years as a mixed martial artist. We've got 5 more fights at the UFC level, almost 50 more minutes in the UFC cage, and he's fought almost half of his career at the highest level, while Martinez has been a regional scene fighter. Equal opportunity finisher for Connetti, 3 by knockout, 3 by submission, 2 by decision. So he's a well-rounded fighter. He has a number of different ways to win. He's not just counting on a knockout or counting on a sub. Martinez has been subbed in 50% of his losses, so there could potentially be a path to victory there if Connetti, chooses to use his wrestling. But for Mana Martinez, we look at the experience numbers. While he's the less experienced martial artist here, he's 16 years younger, and he only has 3 less fights, only 25 less minutes in the cage. So Connetti not that much more experience, and we do know that Mana Martinez, 100% of his pro wins are inside the distance by KO. And Guido Connetti has been finished in all 5 of his professional losses. So not only do we have a guy in Mana Martinez who goes out there and shaves ass 100% of the time, Connetti, when he loses, he's getting his ass shaved 100% of the time. So this does have violence written all over it, especially from the Martinez side. But you know what? Frankly, if we look at the grappling stats here, we do see some decent numbers here for Guido Connetti. He's an active wrestler thus far in the UFC. He's 50% on his takedown attempts. He's averaging 2.64 takedowns per 15 minutes and 0.29 submission attempts for 15 minutes. He's out-controlling his opponents at a 30% to 23% clip. He's got 75% takedown defense in his own right. Martinez has not successfully defended a takedown in the UFC yet, although he's only, gotten one takedown against, but it wound up resulting in a submission. Mana Martinez, even though Connetti is comfortable on the ground, spending 53% of his fights in control time positions, he's been subbed in 4 out of his 5 pro losses. So there's no guarantee that if Connetti does get the fight down to the ground, that Martinez isn't going to be able to sweep him or find a submission in his own right, because Guido Canetti is clearly more comfortable in the grappling exchanges, as we see, over 50% of his fights taking place in control time positions. But, he's not thriving there, as he's been subbed in, 3 out of his 4 UFC losses. So even though he does get the fight down there, he is prone to making mistakes there. So, potentially if the fight does get to the ground, Martinez could catch Connetti in something. If we're talking striking, Martinez has sick power. All 8 pro wins by knockout, and Connetti has been knocked down in his UFC experience on 2.7% of the significant strikes he's absorbed. So there's another ass shaving potential there when you're saying a guy is getting knocked down on 2.7% of the strikes that he absorbs, and he's only absorbed 111. So he's already been knocked down 3 times, in only 111 significant strikes. So there's a huge path there for Mana Martinez. Connetti, though, his striking numbers aren't terrible. He's landing more than he's absorbing. He lands 2.85 per minute. He only absorbs 2.17. He's got nice ratios and differences there, but he hasn't shown any power yet, no knockdowns. And we do know that Mana Martinez has serious power, and that, Connetti's chin has been cracked before. So if we look at the strength of schedule, Connetti has fought almost half of his career at the UFC level, and he's lost fights to veterans like Cristiano Marcelo, Marco Beltran, Alejandro Perez, Henry Briones, Kyung Ho Kang, Marlon Vera, Dana Batgarel. So, these are good names. The guy has fought legitimate competition, while Martinez has been in the regional scene. He's fighting the upper level of the regional scene competition, but Guido Connetti has been in the cage with tougher dudes than Martinez has. Martinez has been fighting and starching upper level regional scene competition, though, for the most part. His wins are just as good as Connetti's. Both are beating upper regional scene competition. So even though Connetti has a couple of wins in the UFC, they're over guys like Diego Rivas, Hugo Viana, guys who weren't really UFC level competition in the first place. They were more regional scene type guys. So even though Connetti is lost to the better competition, if you compare these guys' wins side by side, Connetti's wins aren't any better than Martinez's. Yeah, dude, this has all the makings of a violence bet. This has all the makings of a serious one-sided ass shaving, and I'm getting the feeling you feel the same way.
Yeah, definitely. You take a look at the line, and it definitely, it shows that Mana Martinez opened up as a minus 225 favorite. Immediately went to minus 350, and I do expect to just keep getting wider and wider. So Guido Canetti was supposed to fight Mario Batista, and Batista was like minus 550 against him. And after getting to the tape, I definitely see why. Like the whole time I was researching this fight, like my jaw was dropped. Like I can't believe they sanctioned this fight. I mean, Mana Martinez is going to be 16 years younger. That's crazy. And then, Guido Canetti, yes, he's solid wrestling, but the last time he has got a takedown was like over 3 years ago. I don't think he has the cardio to really wrestle for 3 rounds here. He slows down as the fight goes on, and Mana Martinez just has crazy power. I mean, like I said, I saw him knock out guys with a jab. Like this guy's power is legit. He knocked out Ricky Turcios, somebody that has next level toughness. So, I like Mana Martinez here quite a bit. And I do like him inside the distance. Potential parlay piece, Uncle Weezy. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to a parlay this week, but if I am, he is somebody I'm definitely looking to parlay here. So we do have the fight doesn't go to decision, and this kind of surprises me. The fight doesn't go to decision is sitting at minus 170. Minus 170, open up minus 175. There's actually money coming in on the fight goes to decision, which is very interesting because Mana Martinez, 100% finish rate. I don't think he's finished a fight in the 3rd round. I think all of his wins come under that 1.5 round mark. And then, like you mentioned, Guido Canetti has been finished 5 times, 4 coming by submission. But you take a look at a lot of those submission losses, he's getting rocked prior to the getting finished by sub, or he just completely gasses out and gets tired, and gets hurt, and gets sub then. So yeah, I like the under 2.5. I'm assuming that's where they're going to set it just by judging by the fight as a good decision line. I like the fight doesn't go to decision. Yeah, if I had access to that minus 170, that would be a play right now. But sadly, I don't. I like Mana Martinez inside the distance. I'm hoping for plus money. And then in terms of like a parlay piece, I'm trying to stay away from the parlays this year, but I think Mana Martinez is a pretty solid parlay piece. So in terms of, like taking a look at a bet, Uncle Weezy, looking at the fight doesn't go. Does the minus 175 surprise you?
It does. It surprises me quite a bit. I mean, especially because you're going to see that Martinez is a minus 350 to minus 390 favorite, depending on the books. So, if you're looking at a fight doesn't go to decision, you're looking at it through the lens of Mana Martinez winning this fight, 80% of the time? And if you look at that, at 80% of the time, Mana Martinez has a 100% finish rate in his wins, and Guido Canetti has a 100% finish rate in his losses. And this guy's just a few years away from Social Security. Man, you gotta love the fight doesn't go to decision, but you also believe that might get steamed before it's on some of the more available books to us. But I like the fight doesn't go to decision. I like Mana Martinez. I like Mana Martinez inside the distance. This is a fight that I think is a great curtain jerker, and there's some great opportunities, some bets that are just screaming for your attention in this curtain jerker, and I'm going to probably hit all three of them.
Yeah, and it's also the first fight of the night. I don't know what it is lately, but that first fight of the night, we've been seeing violence, right? Like Brahim got it done by submission last time out. Johnny Munoz Jr. got it done by submission. And I think we're going to see another ass shaving here with Mana Martinez getting it done probably early, probably very, very early. So Mana Martinez is definitely a spot that I'm very, very intrigued in. So we will move on to a very intriguing fight for me. I'm really looking forward to this fight. Probably one of the fights I'm looking most forward to. We have Jamal Emerson going against Pat Sabatini, two guys that I'm pretty high on. I like both these guys. You have Jamal Emerson, who is 32 years old, 5'10" with a 74-inch reach. Pat Sabatini, 30 years old, 5'8", 70-inch reach. Jamal Emerson, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout win, and then a submission win, and then came into the UFC against Giga Chikadze and lost a split decision, which if you go back and watch that fight, I really did think that Jamal Emerson did do enough to get the win, but regardless, it was a very close fight. I think Jamal Emerson outlanded Giga in that third round, 3-1, something crazy like that. But after that, he did beat Vince Cachero. I believe Cachero did come in on short notice for that, but he was able to beat him there. As far as Pat Sabatini, he has 4-1 in his last 5 fights as well. Submission win, a TKO loss due to an injury. I believe he hurt his arm or his shoulder, and then a knockout win after that, submission win, and then comes in, makes his UFC debut against Tristan Connolly. Looks phenomenal in that first and second round, looks amazing, and then does slow down the grappling heavy pace, and he does slow down and has a little bit of a lackluster third round, but ends up winning a decision there. So yeah, very good fight here, Uncle Weezy. Really curious to hear your thoughts on this one, and I think it's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one because you've got a guy in Emmers who has a really fantastic wrestling background. The guy's a very high level. I think it was a high school, but it might have also been a collegiate wrestler. And then in Sabatini, you've got this great jiu-jitsu player who's just a whiz with submissions on the ground. So it's a really interesting stylistic matchup, in my opinion, to see who's going to get their game plan off here. So let me get to my notes here, and we'll talk about the measurables. Jamal Emerson is going to be 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. I mean, he's just a huge a featherweight at 5'10", but a 74-inch reach. He's going to have a reach advantage over most featherweights. Sabatini's 2 years younger, but I would definitely give the measurables advantage to Emerson. In terms of experience, we got Emerson being the slightly more experienced fighter here with 6 more pro fights, almost 100 more minutes in the pro cage, and a year and a half more in the game. He's got 2 more fights at the UFC level. He's got 20 more minutes in the UFC cage. And if we look at Sabatini, we've got a 78% finish rate as a pro, 9 wins by submission, 2 by knockout. And Emerson has been finished in 3 of his 5 pro losses, twice by KO, once by sub. So, Emerson's been finished in a couple of different ways, and Sabatini has a number of different ways to win fights because he's not just a great grappler. He does have some pretty flashy stand-up and throws a lot of spinning heel kicks and some taekwondo and karate techniques from the outside. He's got a really interesting striking style. So, it's going to be really interesting while this fight is on the feet because Sabatini's, got some good long-range striking, and Emerson's tries to use his length pretty well. So it could be interesting while it's on the feet, but then also, once this thing gets to the ground, it could get even more interesting. But I don't know if it's going to get there. The striking advantages here for Emmers, he's just throwing an absolute ton of volume right now. He's throwing about 11 significant strikes per minute. And this is, a guy who's, it's not like 90% of his fights are taking place at striking range. It's really more like 75%. So about 11 significant strike attempts per minute. He's got 1 UFC knockdown and 208 significant strikes landed. He's got a 0.48% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed and 0.41 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So he's showing a little bit of power for the featherweight division. He's got nice ratios and striking differences, landing 5.75 and only absorbing 4.65. So he's landing 1.1 more significant strikes per minute than he's absorbing. And he's got a decent 55% striking defense. While for Sabatini, we've only got a one-fight sample size here, landing 1.73, absorbing only 1.27. He spent a lot of that fight in control time positions. He's got 1 UFC knockdown, though, in that fight. So in only 26 significant strikes landed, he's got a knockdown. So that's a 3.85 knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. That's obviously, there's going to be some regression there, but it's a good start. And Emmers has been knocked down on 0.6% of the significant strikes landed against him. So, potentially we could see Sabatini catching him on the feet here. Grappling. I think this is where the fight's going to be the most interesting. Emmers has an excellent wrestling pedigree. 7 of his 13 UFC takedown attempts have been successful, 53.85%. He's averaging 2.9 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents at a 21.66 to 2.21% rate. So like over 19% difference in control time for and control time allowed for Jamal Emmers. So when he does go to the grappling, he's efficient and he's out controlling his opponents at a really nice pace there. So when he does choose to get the fight to the ground, he's doing very well. He's also got 100% takedown defense, and that's not surprising from somebody who does have as high level of a wrestling background as Emmers does. He's successfully defended all 3 takedown attempts against in the UFC. Now, Sabatini's a high-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu player. A lot of wins by submission in his career. That's 9 out of his 14 wins actually have come by submission. He outcontrols opponents in a one-fight sample size at a 66% to 9% rate. But if we look at the strength of schedule here, Emmers 2 more UFC fights. He's fought the better competition thus far in the UFC. The loss versus Chikadze was close. And Sabatini's, he's a former CFFC featherweight champion, so he was used to training for fights that were 4-round championship fights in CFFC. So he's got experience at the championship level, fighting long fights. He's got good conditioning. But if we got to talk about some of the stylistic things here, because one thing that I want to mention is that in the Emmers-Chikadze fight, Jamal Emery showed abysmal fight IQ.
Yep.
This is a guy who is a state champion wrestler, if I remember correctly, who didn't shoot 1 fucking takedown attempt, I think, until the end of the second round. He was getting pieced up on the feet the entire time. It really wasn't close, and he did not go to his wrestling at all. So, if you're thinking of betting on a guy like Jamal Emmers, you have to be aware that this guy isn't necessarily going to do things in the cage that are going to give him a chance to win. He might just forget that he's a good wrestler and that the guy that's standing in front of him is outstriking him, and he won't take the fight to a place where he's going to be at an advantage. So that's hard. And then you look at Pat Sabatini's performance. Tristan Connolly, not a particularly great opponent here. He really did great in the first 2 rounds and then completely took his foot off the gas.
Yep.
It was very frustrating in the UFC debut from a young man like Sabatini, who's getting his first shot, who's fought 4 rounds, he's trained for long fights, to see him take his foot off the gas like that in the 3rd round. And I think Pat talked about it and admitted to the fact that he had some nerves in that fight, so it was the first UFC, it was his UFC debut. He showed some nerves. He probably couldn't. Probably didn't perform as well as he could have. But this is his second fight. Maybe he takes that next step. Maybe he gets over the nerves. This to me is a very close fight.
Yeah.
I think Emmers will be the one that's able to decide whether this fight stays standing or goes to the ground. And I think that's a key in terms of who's going to be successful in this fight. But I don't know who the better striker is here. I think both of these guys are pretty good. And I think Sabatini might even be the better striker here. So this is a hard fight to call, man. You got to tell me what you've seen on tape. You got to tell me your side of things here. Maybe we can come to a conclusion.
Yeah, it's a very, very tough fight to call because I'm really high on Sabatini. I think he's a phenomenal grappler, a legit black belt in BJJ. The problem with that is Emmers, like you mentioned, 100% takedown defense. I did go and watch some of his fights. Didn't really see many people try to take him down. So the question mark I have is, what does happen if Pat Sabatini is able to get on top of Jamal Emmers? Because I do favor the wrestling of Jamal Emmers, but in terms of like strictly grappling, that's Sabatini all day. So I do want to go back to the Giga Chikadze fight. And by the way, like I said, I really thought that Jamal Emerson did win the fight, but you mentioned it, terrible fight IQ in the first round, gets outlanded 13-8 against Giga, clearly loses that first round. But in the second round, he does outland Giga 14-12, takes him down, gets 1 minute and 26 seconds of control time. But something weird happened after that. Giga Chikadze actually reversed him in that second round. If you remember, he reversed him, which is very weird. So Giga Chikadze, the striker, reversing you. Like, what's going to happen if Jamal Emerson does engage in the grappling here? And that's what definitely does scare me. And then in the third round, Jamal Emerson actually outlands Giga Chikadze 32-13. So that second round was close. I personally did score it for Jamal Emerson, but it really doesn't matter. But regardless, I mean, that's pretty impressive going to a very close split decision with somebody that's main eventing this card here. So, I'm going to lean Emmers. He's going to be the bigger fighter. He's going to have 2 inches of height. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage as well. I personally do think he is the better striker. He's fought the better competition, but it's going to get very, very tricky if it does indeed hit the mat, because at that point, I do favor Sabatini. Man, this fight's very close. I'm going to slightly lean with Emmers because I do think that, if he can keep it on the feet, I think he can win a decision there, just volume-based. But, man, if Sabatini is able to, get him down, or if Jamal Emerson takes down Sabatini and Sabatini gets a reversal, maybe gets a submission off his back, because Jamal Emerson has been submitted, I believe, in 2 of his losses. I know it was a long time ago, but still, Pat Sabatini is a legit grappler. So I will say that he's, a live dog, but just in terms of what I've seen, I'm probably going to go with the Emerson side as of now. We'll take a look at the line, and there's money, flowing in on Jamal Emerson here. We have Emerson opening up as a -145 favorite, went all the way to -110. He was sitting there for a few days, and then money's been pouring in on him. He is now -150 favorite and getting wider and wider. So if you do like the Sabatini side, I kind of sit there and wait, because it looks like Jamal Emerson is going to be one of the more popular plays of the week. Sabatini opened up +125, dropped immediately down to -110, was there for a couple days, and has been steadily going up to +130 now. But yeah, it looks like the Jamal Emerson line is getting wider and wider. In terms of the fight goes to decision and the fight doesn't go to decision, we have the fight doesn't go to decision at +150. No real strong take here. I could see it finishing. I'm going to probably pick Jamal Emerson by decision, but both guys are dangerous, especially Sabatini on the mat. I'll say Jamal Emerson by decision, but just not much confidence. I'm not really sure why money is flowing in on Jamal Emerson here. I get that he's going to be the bigger fighter, more experience, better competition. In my opinion, a striking advantage, but the grappling, I do favor Sabatini there. So, any feelings on the fight goes or fight doesn't go easy?
No, I'm going to stay away from that. But when you look at these lines, here's the way I'm looking at it. We saw some negatives with Emmers with the fight IQ, and I think we both agree on that. That the fight IQ was abysmal in the Chikadze fight, plain and simple. He should have been trying to take him down for the entire damn fight, and the fact that he didn't shows that he has poor fight IQ. Sabatini, on the other hand, the freshest image in our head about Sabatini is the fact that he just ran the whole third round and took the third round off, won the fight, but at least he showed some IQ there. He was winning that fight clearly. There's no way that fight was 1-1 on anyone's scorecard. He won those first 2 rounds. He wanted to make sure that he banked the win. So I think that you're seeing Sabatini as a plus money dog here, because that fresh image in our head is of him running and not finishing the fight. However, you can also look at that as Pat Sabatini having better cage IQ, having better awareness, despite the fact that he's the less experienced mixed martial artist here, because he understands where he is in a fight. He understands whether he's winning or losing, and that he understands what he needs to do in order to achieve his goal, which is to win the fight. So, I would say the value is on Sabatini here, but I think it's a damn close fight.
I agree. I agree with that. I think the value is probably on Sabatini, especially as the week goes on. It looks like there's just money pouring in and on Jamal Emerson here. And I think I was one of the only few people that was actually impressed with Pat Sabatini as UFC performance. I mean, that was his UFC debut, and when he went out there, clearly won the fight. But people were crapping on him because, he did take his foot off the pedal. I don't like to see, a lot of people don't like to see that, but still, he went out there and clearly won the fight. So I was actually impressed. I know a lot of people crapped on him, but I think the guy's legit. I think his grappling's legit. And this is a very close competitive fight and a very good fight against two guys that I'm very, very high on. So looking forward to it for sure. But I am leaning as of now on the Ember side, but I'm going to see where that line goes, Weezy. Moving on to the people's main event, we have JJ Aldrich going against Vanessa Demopoulos. We have Aldrich, who is 28 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Vanessa Demopoulos, 32 years old, 5'1", 62-inch reach. Some things to note here. Aldrich is going to be 4 years younger. Aldrich is going to have a 4-inch height advantage, and Aldrich is going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. Something also to note, Vanessa is coming up a weight class to 125. Typically, she does fight at 115. And I looked through her record on Tapology, and she typically weighs under that 115-pound mark just slightly. So probably small for the 115-pound division as well, coming up against a bigger JJ Aldrich here. As far as her last couple fights here, Aldrich is 3-2 in her last 5 fights, fighting the better competition here, clearly. A decision win over Polyana Viana, a knockout loss to Macy Barber, a decision win over Lauren Mueller, and a split decision loss to Sabina Mazo, and a split decision win over Courtney Casey. As far as Vanessa Demopoulos, she did have a decision win over Levith Young, a submission win over Sam Hughes, a decision loss to Cora McKenna, a decision loss to Lupita Godinez, and then a knockout loss against Cynthia Arceo. So 3-2 in her last 2 fights. Yeah, Weezy, I mean, interesting fight. I think it's a tough test for Vanessa coming in here on short notice, coming up a weight class against JJ Aldrich, who was supposed to take on Tracy Cortez. I think the size will be key here, but anything you saw that stuck out to you?
I mean, yeah, a few things. Vanilla Coco is saying in the chat that no one cares about this fight. Please skip. I will get through it quickly, my man, because I think we're kind of on the same page there. But yeah, it's a short notice fight for Vanessa. She's going to be the much smaller girl here. It's a striker versus grappler matchup. Vanessa's great on the ground. JJ's great on the feet. JJ's 4 years younger, 4 inches taller, and a 5-inch reach advantage. So not only is Vanessa taking the fight on short notice, but Aldrich is just much bigger. She's the natural flyweight, while, Vanessa could potentially make atom weight. Not like she carries any fat on her body anywhere, but still, she's small. She's small. Aldrich has got the experience advantage here. She's got 4 more pro fights, over 50 more minutes in the cage, fought almost 2/3 of her pro career at the UFC level, 3 more years as a pro, 7 more UFC fights, 5 UFC wins, almost 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. Demopoulos, 4 of 6 pro wins by finish, 3 by submission, 1 by knockout. And Aldrich has been finished in half her pro losses, so maybe Vanessa could find a way to finish the fight here, but probably not. Aldrich has a huge measurables advantage, a huge experience advantage, a big striking advantage too. She's got 62% striking defense thus far in the UFC, fighting some really good competition like Casey and Mazo and Barber and Viana. Demopoulos has not shown great striking thus far. Her striking defense only at 50% in the Corey McKenna fight. Aldrich should have the clear striking advantage here. Aldrich 6 of 15 on takedown attempts, 40%, out controls opponents at a 17 to 8% clip, and Demopoulos was out controlled at a 74 to 1% clip in the Corey McKenna Contender Series fight. She was absolutely dominated on the ground by Corey, but Corey is very good. She showed it in the Kay Hansen fight. So Aldrich will be the bigger, stronger fighter here. Demopoulos is a solid submission grappler, and Aldrich has poor takedown defense. 57.14% takedown defense, 8 of 14 takedowns defended successfully. So potentially, if Vanessa goes to the wrestling, even though she's smaller and JJ is going to be bigger and stronger than her, she might be able to get it to the ground. But really, the advantages are everywhere on Aldrich. She's bigger, she's stronger, she's more experienced, she's the better striker. And since she's bigger, it might be difficult for Vanessa to get her to the ground. Yes. Vanessa 0 for 2 on takedown attempts against the much smaller Corey McKenna. So, yeah, I'm leaning Aldrich here quite a bit. Potentially Demopoulos could find some success in the grappling here, but this looks pretty clearly to be Aldrich all day. What do you think?
Yeah, Aldrich all day for me as well. She's going to have a massive striking advantage. Demopoulos does block punches with her face. Demopoulos, really no wrestling, especially compared to 125. I find it very hard to see her taking down Aldrich. If she is able to take her down, yeah, she has success. I just don't see that happening. So I think Aldrich, if she fights smart, she's going to look like a huge favorite here. I wouldn't really engage with the grappling. I think she can take down Demopoulos if she wants to, but that's kind of giving Demopoulos her path to victory, which is probably like an armbar from guard. But yeah, Aldrich's size advantage, I think, is huge, and then a massive striking advantage, level of competition advantage. I think it's Aldrich all day. But the problem is, you take a look at this line, and we have JJ Aldrich opening up minus 220, and Uncle Weezy, JJ Aldrich is minus 350. Minus 350. And Vanessa Demopoulos opened up plus 185, and she is currently plus 275. Yeah, I think she wins. It's just the thought of laying minus 350 on JJ Aldrich just makes me sick to my stomach, Uncle Weezy. So in terms of the fight goes to decision, of course, it's juiced minus 350. Fight goes to decision, plus 250. Fight doesn't go to decision. It probably does go to decision. I will pick JJ Aldrich to win by decision, but I'm not sure I'll get to that money line.
Yeah, that money line is just way too wide. Yeah, you just don't lay, minus 350 on a fighter like JJ Aldrich, who has a career record of 9-4. It's not good enough. You're laying too much there. So, maybe there's some value at like plus 250 on Aldrich catching a knockout, or Demopoulos, getting an arm bar from guard or something. It's plus 250. You're getting some pretty good odds there. That definitely women's flyweight fights finish at a better rate and at a better implied probability than plus 250. But yeah, man, 1-800 gambler. We had that's up there for a reason, you guys. I'm with you on that one, Brady.
Yeah, if I talk to you this week about potentially betting JJ Aldrich or putting in a parlay, make sure you call 1-800 gambler on me for sure.
The orderlies will be coming. Yes.
Yep. Send extra this time as well. All right, so we'll move on to a pretty good fight. I'm looking forward to this one. We have Dustin Jacoby going against Darren Stewart. Dustin Jacoby is 33 years old, 6'3", 76-inch reach, going against Darren Stewart, who is 30 years old, 6 foot, 74-inch reach. Dustin Jacoby, he is going to have a 3-inch height advantage and going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's going to be the bigger fighter in this fight. In terms of their last few fights, Dustin Jacoby had a draw against Ion Cutelaba in a fight where he got absolutely dominated in that first round. I think Cutelaba took him down like 7 or 8 times just in that first round, and then Cutelaba ended up gassing out, and then ended up being a draw there. Prior to that, did win a decision over Maxim Grishin, a very, very close fight that was kind of controversial, but I personally did score it for Jacoby. He knocked out Justin Ledet. Prior to that, win over Ty Flores and then Cody East. Darren Stewart, he is 2-1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Had the decision lost to Eric Anders. Prior to that, had that no contest to Eric Anders in a fight where Anders was so close to finishing, being the first one to finish Darren Stewart by knockout, but there was an illegal knee to the head in that fight, turned into a no contest there. And then prior to that, lost a split decision against Kevin Holland, and then he submitted Maki Patola. That was, I believe, Darren Stewart's very first submission on his record. And then prior to that, did beat Darren Win by split decision. So a very interesting matchup here. We got a striker versus a striker, but a guy that in Darren Stewart that's probably going to want to get this fight down to the mat, Weezy.
Yeah, man, that's what people have tried to do against Jacoby, and we saw Cutelaba have some success doing that, and Maxim Grishin was just much bigger than Jacoby in that fight. And I remember he missed weight by about 5 pounds too.
Yeah,
and Grishin has had some fights at heavyweight, so Grishin, controlled Jacoby for a good amount of that fight there. But lost that unanimous decision. Man, I thought Grishin won that fight. So yeah, he's had a rough go. Jacoby's beaten Justin Ledet, but a kickboxer against a boxer isn't fair when the kickboxer is using the calf kicks, and that's exactly he just chopped up Ledet's legs easy win in that fight for Jacoby. But then we saw, a really close fight against Grishin and a really close fight against Kudalaba. Either of those could have went either way, in my opinion. This is going to be a damn good fight. Let me get the notes for you guys here. When we talk about measurables, I've got Jacoby being 3 inches taller and having a 2-inch reach advantage. He's also the natural light heavyweight, while Stewart is kind of like in between middleweight and light heavyweight. But, Stewart should be fighting at middleweight probably. So Stewart's 3 years younger, but Jacoby, in my opinion, has the measurables advantage here, being the bigger, stronger guy and probably the more natural light heavyweight. In terms of experience, we got Jacoby has 3 more years as a pro. He's got an extensive pro kickboxing career, which he was before MMA. Then he fought MMA for a while. Then he went back to kickboxing, came back to MMA. Stewart has 1 more professional fight. He has 25 more minutes of cage time, 7 more UFC fights, and 2/3 of his pro career have been at the UFC level. While for Jacoby, it's about 1/3. 50 more minutes of UFC cage time for Stewart, a 66% finish rate, 58% by KO, and Jacoby has been KO'd once in 5 losses. If we're looking at striking here, Jacoby has the better UFC striking ratios on paper, power numbers, and defensive striking percentage. He lands 4.45 and absorbs 3.35 significant strikes a minute for a significant strike differential of 1.1. It's very good. He's got 3 UFC knockdowns and 328 significant strikes landed for a 0.91% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. He's averaging 0.61 knockdowns per 15 minutes and a 61% striking defense. So overall, on the feet, Dustin Jacoby, that's where he's most comfortable having that pro kickboxing background. He's going to want to keep this fight standing and pick apart Stewart from a distance and use that defense to avoid getting hit. So he should be the better striker here. Stewart, on the other hand, has great power in his hands. They call him the dentist for that reason. He's got 2 UFC knockdowns and 374 significant strikes landed. He's got a 0.53% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. And Jacoby's been knocked down on 0.81% of the significant strikes he's absorbed. So solid chin, having only been knocked down once in UFC 13 in 13 UFC fights for Stewart. And he's got 385 significant strikes absorbed, only been knocked down once. So a great chin on Stewart, a lot of durability. Grappling, I don't think any one of these guys does anything great in the grappling area. Now, Darren Stewart obviously is going to be the more active wrestler in this fight, having had 31 takedown attempts in 13 fights. He's gotten 13 takedowns in 13 fights. So he's got a 42% takedown percentage, which is pretty good. He's getting 1.56 takedowns per 15 minutes, but he's only managing 16% control time and giving up 35. So if you're looking for Darren Stewart to win this fight via the grappling, we can look at the aggregate of 13 fights here and say that Darren Stewart is getting out-controlled by his opponents at a more than 2-to-1 ratio. He's getting taken down by his opponents twice as often as he's taking guys down. So Stewart is getting taken down 3.11 times per 15 minutes, and he's taking down his opponents 1.56. So, yeah, we could see Stewart try to hold him up against the cage, make this dirty up in the clinch. We could see him trying to get takedowns here, but that'll empty his gas tank. He's not particularly good at it. I mean, in 125 minutes of cage time, he's got about 18 minutes of control time, and that's on 13 takedowns and 31 takedown attempts. So, when he gets takedowns, he's really not doing much with them. He does have that one submission against Maki Pitolo. Stand up if you had Darren Stewart by submission in that fight. That would have been one hell of a cash. But yeah, man, Jacoby, only 64% takedown defense. He's been taken down 2.64 times per 15 minutes and out-controlled at an 18% to 10% pace. But, like I say, Stewart is not the kind of fighter that goes out there and wins with a wrestling-based game plan. If you're counting on him to do that, you should be betting on him at plus money and getting a decent amount of plus money, because it's not what he's good at. And then if we look at the strength of schedule advantages, Stewart's probably fought the better competition. He's got a 1.2 ratio overall to a 0.76 for Jacoby. So he's fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced competition. But Jacoby's a natural light heavyweight, so he's used to fighting bigger, stronger guys than Stewart is. Very interesting fight. I favor Jacoby on the feet. I favor Stewart in the grappling exchanges and the potential takedowns and control time, but that is not where Stewart is at his best. So I do see why Jacoby's a favorite. I don't know if he should be minus 190. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, first I want to say shout out to Stefan and Dan for the donuts. Appreciate that, guys. Appreciate for hanging out. But yeah, in terms of this, I thought at first, Stewart might be a live dog for me, a potential bet. But after getting into it, I'm with you. I'm seeing the exact same things. I don't think Stewart's going to come out here and be able to really wrestle for 3 rounds, because Jacoby in his last fight, he got taken down 9 times. Like that looks horrible, but that just means he got up 7, 8 times in that fight. Like he showed a very good get up game. And, even then, Kudalaba took him down 8 times in the first round, controlled him for only 3 minutes and 19 seconds. Like that's not terrible. And you definitely mentioned it in terms of the stats as well. Darren Stewart, only 16% control time for and 35% control time against. So just to see, Stewart come out here and, lay on Jacoby for 3 rounds, I just don't see that happening. It's just not something he does. I don't think he has the best top control. And on top of that, I think Jacoby has a very solid get-up game. So I think, the line could potentially be just a bit off, because I do think Stewart's going to get some takedowns. I'm just struggling to see Stewart being able to really hold him down. And on the feet, I do favor the Jacoby side just with the volume. I think he's a better striker. Obviously, Darren Stewart hits very hard, but, I do favor Jacoby quite a bit in the striking. So I do get the line, again, maybe it's slightly off, but I do think Jacoby should be a decent sized favorite here, because I don't really see Darren Stewart having much success in the grappling. And that's kind of what I think he does need to do to win. So in terms of the line, we do see Jacoby opening up as a minus 175 favorite, currently minus 190, and Darren Stewart opening up plus 150 and currently plus 165. Yeah, I can't pick Stewart. I just don't really see a world where he comes out here and puts on a 3-round wrestling performance, getting multiple takedowns. I think Jacoby's going to be able to stand up and just piece him up on the feet for the most part. Something else that really did stick out to me on the Stewart side was going to be his striking defense, a 49% striking defense. That's horrible. That is horrible. And against a guy with a lot of volume, a great striker in Jacoby, that's just a recipe for disaster on the feet. So, yeah, I like Jacoby here. I think he does win a decision. Stewart is very, very durable. Never been knocked out. Guy's a very good chin. Fight goes to decision is minus 135. I don't hate that. I really don't hate that. And then fight doesn't go to decision is minus 105. So in terms of the fight goes or fight doesn't go, anything sticking out to you in terms of a money line bet potentially, or are you probably going to pass here?
On the money line, I would probably be more likely to maybe go with Stewart here. You're getting pretty decent, 1.6, 1.65 to 1 odds on your money. I think he could land a big shot. I think he can win some minutes here. And he's a tough dude. Like you say, he's never been knocked out. I kind of like the fight goes to decision here, actually. I kind of agree with Billy Briz on that one, in that both of these guys are tough. And I could see it being kind of like a gritty, dirty fight up against the cage, and those fights tend to go the distance, So, I'm not jumping at any of the bets, in this fight, but I'm just a little bit leaning towards the plus money on Stewart, and I'm a little bit leaning towards the fight goes at minus 135.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but they always get good money odds on Darren Stewart fight goes the distance. I think against Anders, I think fight goes to decision was plus money or really close to it. So another instance where, minus 135 fight goes the distance is something that I have my eye on for sure. So we do have 129 in here. If you all can hit the like button, that'd be much, much appreciated. Thank you for hanging out with me and my Uncle Weezy, our Uncle Weezy, on a Sunday evening. As always, we are about to get into a very, very fun fight here. We have Sam Alvey going against Wellington Turman. Sam Alvey, he is 35 years old, 6'2", 75-inch reach, going against Wellington Turman, 25 years old, 6 foot, 72-inch reach. So some things to note. First off, Turman's going to be 10 years younger. And then Alvey's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage as well. We'll take a look at their last few fights, and my goodness, Sam Alvey has not won a fight, and it seems like forever. I think the last time he won his fight, Weezy, was like 3 years ago. I don't think he's won a fight in his last 6 fights. So he is 0-4 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights here. He had a knockout loss to Jimmy Crute. He had a decision loss to Klidson and Abreu, a split decision loss against Ryan Spann, which was a very close fight. Spann was like minus 300. It certainly did not look like it. And then a draw against Da Un Jung in a fight where I personally scored it as a draw, but you can definitely make a case where Sam Alvey, could have won that fight, and then loses by submission to Julian Marquez. And I believe that was Sam Alvey's first UFC submission loss. But we did see Julian Marquez really hurt Sam Alvey bad and then submit him shortly after. As far as Wellington Turman, has not been looking good himself. 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A submission win over Marcio Alexandre, a decision loss to Carl Roberson, a decision win over Mark Perez, a knockout loss to Andrew Sanchez, and then a knockout loss just recently to Bruno Silva. So it's a very interesting fight here, Weezy. I'm very interested to see what you have, because I am, potentially looking at a bet here.
I am too. And I want to echo the sentiments of my man Dan Goldstein, who said to donkey punch the like button and always gamble semi-responsibly. I agree wholeheartedly with both of those points that he made there. But let's see. So this is an interesting one, man, because there's one thing that kind of like jumps off the page here, and that's that Wellington Turman is 10 years younger than Sam Alvey and just got way less, tread on the tires. But then if you kind of just go through and you look at all the advantages here, it's hard to find anything for Wellington Turman.
Yes.
Even in the measurables, right? Sam Alvey's 2 inches taller and he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. So he's got the better measurables, while Turman obviously 10 years younger. But then let's look at everything else here. Pro experience. Sam Alvey has 29 more professional fights. He's got over 350 more minutes as a pro, almost 6 hours of his life that he's spent in the cage more than Wellington Turman as a pro. 6 more years of his life as a professional, 17 more UFC fights, almost 170 more minutes in the UFC cage, so almost 3 hours more of his life in the UFC cage. Sam has fought 40% of his career at the UFC level, while for Turman it's less than 20%. 58% of Sam's pro wins are by knockout. That's 19 career knockouts. And Turman has been knocked out in 40% of his pro losses, 2 out of 5. So definitely a path there for Sam. Striking advantages. There's no experience advantages here for Turman, obviously. The striking advantages for Alvey. He's a patient, effective counter striker. He's got power in his hands, obviously. He's got a 1.06% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, averaging out to a half knockdown per 15 minutes. And Turman's been knocked down once in 146 significant strikes absorbed. So there could be a path to victory via KO for Sam. Turman has a terrible 43.19% striking defense, and he's absorbing 0.38 knockdowns per 15 minutes as a result of that terrible striking defense. So the grappling advantages here are that Sam Alvey, if we look at his career in the UFC, and we've got a 21 fight sample size, Sam Alvey 5.33% control time for, 14.06% control time against. So Sam, a guy who prefers to strike over a 21 fight sample size, has fought over 80% of his UFC career at striking range. So for guys that are comfortable striking, you want to see them fighting most of their fights at striking range, and you want to see them stopping takedowns. Well, guess what? Sam Alvey has successfully defended 47 out of 57 takedowns attempts against in 21 professional fights. That's over 82% takedown defense. He's getting taken down less than 1 time per 15 minutes, and he's had 57 takedown attempts shot against him. He's only giving up 14% control time off of 57 takedown attempts. So, Sam Alvey is the kind of guy where if you're a grappler and you're looking to submit him, you're going to have an awfully tough time getting this guy to the ground. And even if you do, chances are he's getting right back up. Sam Alvey has 10 losses in the UFC, and only one of them is by submission. So we look at Wellington Turman. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, if I'm not mistaken. He's got 7 of his 16 pro wins are by submission. But the problem is that we've got a decent 4-fight sample size for Wellington Turman. Well, check it out. Look at the control time numbers. 42.15% control time for, 25.52% control time against. So this is a clear striker versus grappler matchup where we got a guy in Alvey who's keeping over 80% of his fights at striking distance, while for Wellington Turman, it's less than 1/3 of his fights that take place at striking distance. So big time clash of styles here. But the problem is, if Turman wants to get this to the ground, he's only been successful on 22% of his takedown attempts. He's had 21 of his 27 takedown attempts successfully defended thus far in the UFC. And then you got a guy like Sam Alvey, who's got almost 83% takedown defense in his own right. And then if we just talk about strength of schedule, I mean, come on. Sam Alvey's fought, beaten, and lost to the tougher, more experienced competition. Way more experienced, fought a higher percentage of his career at the highest level, and he has better wins, and he's lost to the tougher competition. How the fuck does Turman win this fight?
First of all,
and dude, he's plus money here. I like this spot, man. I like Sam Alvey here.
Dude, I wanted to wait and see what you had to say, but yeah, Sam Alvey will probably be on my betting card. We have Clint in the chat. What is up, Clint? Clint,
yes.
I believe pulled the trigger on Sam Alvey. So Clint, I might be joining you, and I 100% agree, especially after going through the stats. Weezy, like, I'm with you. How does Wellington Turman win this fight? Because on the feet, some stats that I did want to point out in terms of their striking. So Sam Alvey, he's very low volume, right? He does land 3.2 significant strikes, has a negative 0.24 significant strike differential, but Wellington Turman's even lower volume. It lands 2.44 with a 42% striking accuracy, a negative 1.31 significant strike differential, and get this, a 43% striking defense, which I believe is like the worst on the entire card. Like, he is so hittable, and if he cannot get this fight down to the mat, like, this is Alvey's fight all day. And you take a look at, Wellington Turman, what he's done so far in the UFC. He has taken 2 different opponents down, one being that bum and Marcus Perez, who has not been cut yet, I don't believe. Maybe he's been cut. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. And then he also took down Carl Roberson, who has a 45% takedown defense. Other than that, was not able to take down Andrew Sanchez, got knocked out, was not able to take down Bruno Silva, and got knocked out as well. Man, I think this is a bounce back spot for Sam Alvey. It's not like he's like 40 years old, right? He's only 35. I don't know what it is, but you think of Sam Alvey, you think he's like a lot older than 35 years old. And yes, he has not won a fight in forever, but he's being competitive. He's being competitive with some of these guys. Against Ryan Spann, actually outlands Ryan Spann 57-51. He actually outlands Da Eun Jung 59-56. I think both Da Eun Jung and Ryan Spann would finish Turman in a round or less. So I'm going to do it. I think, Weezy, I'm very tempted on the Sam Alvey side, especially you take a look at the odds. Like, I just don't get this line. I get that Sam Alvey has not won in like 3 years, but he's fighting good competition. I just think it's such a winnable matchup for him. We take a look at the line here. We have Sam Alvey opening up minus 110, currently plus 125. Turman opening up minus 110, currently minus 145. I see Sam Alvey minus one or plus 132 on FanDuel, plus 130 on DraftKings. Fight goes to decision is minus 140. Fight doesn't go to decision is plus money, plus 100. Yeah, Weezy, I'm looking at a potential underdog shot here. And Sam, I can't believe I'm saying it, but after looking at the matchup, I think it's a pretty solid spot for him.
You just go through the numbers, and and you come to the conclusion that Turman is going to absolutely have to get this fight to the ground to probably win it. I mean, Sam's just too patient. If you stand in front of Sam and don't strike, he's not going to be first. Sam's going to wait for you. And he's very good at counter striking. So, I just don't see Wellington winning this fight on the feet. And then not only that, I just don't see him getting it to the ground, man. I'm going to be right there with you. I'll go at least 1 unit, maybe 1.25, maybe 1.5 on the underdog smiling Sam Alvey here. I'm betting it, dude.
Clint brings up a really good point that he was just KO'd like 2 months ago, right? So that's coming back. Like, it was a brutal KO as well. Brutal KO. And then prior to that, he got knocked out by Andrew Sanchez, who knocks out nobody. So, man.
Those are 2 ass shavings in a row right there, man. I mean, the Sanchez, nobody really saw that coming by KO. And boy, did Bruno Silva pound him on the ground.
Yeah, I agree. I do like Sam Alvey, like just like stylistically, like this just feels like such a good matchup. Like Turman, he needs to get the fight down to the mat, and it's so hard to take down Sam Alvey. 82% takedown defense, and if you do get him down, good luck holding him down. And it's not like Sam Alvey's like a fish out of water in terms of BJJ. Yes, he's going to be at a disadvantage, but he has a brown belt with a ton of experience. So yeah, man, I think Sam Alvey could be a decent underdog spot here this week.
I'm with you, man. I'm going to be betting it.
All right. Sounds good. Glad you agree with me there. I was waiting to see what you had to say, and we do line up, as well as Clint as well in the chat. Seems to be pretty high on LV himself. So we shall move on to a fight that was supposed to be Hiestand going against Braga Neto. We broke it down a couple weeks ago, but now stepping in on short notice is Alessio Di Chirico. And Abdulrazak Hiestand, he is 35 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. As far as Alessio Di Chirico, he is 31 years old, 6 foot, 74-inch reach. In terms of the last few fights, Hiestand is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He had a knockout win against Sabah, a knockout win over Nico, and then goes on a layoff. Some things going on outside of the cage. He comes back, and man, has he looked like a completely different fighter. He has not looked good, to say the least. He dropped the ball against Benir Lazez as a huge favorite. He dropped the ball against Chaos Williams as a huge favorite. And then, you guessed it, he dropped the ball against Jacob Malkoun as a huge favorite. And, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, each of these fights. But when you're losing to Jacob Malkoun, and not only losing to Jacob Malkoun, getting your ass shaved by Jacob Malkoun, that really makes you, stop and think, is this the same Abdulrazak Hiestand that we have seen in the past? And, I'm leaning towards no. I think that, time has passed him by. He just does not look like the same fighter. And if you're getting taken down 7, 8, 9 times by Jacob Malkoun, getting, not only losing, but getting dominated every second of that fight, basically, I think there's some serious red flags on the Abdulrazak Hiestand side. As far as Di Chirico, I think he's an underrated fighter. I really do think this guy is very underrated. He may not have the most exciting fighting style, but he went out there as a pretty big dog and knocked out Joaquin Buckley, who had a lot of hype on him, knocked him out, I believe, in the first round there. Prior to that, did lose a decision to Zach Cummings, a very, very close fight. Prior to that, did lose a decision to Makhmud Miradav, who's on the card. No shame in that whatsoever. Prior to that, lost a decision to Kevin Holland in a very, very close fight. And then prior to that, won a decision over Julian Marquez. So, both guys are 2-3 in their last 5 fights, but I kind of feel like the momentum, if there isn't any momentum at all, it's going to be on the Di Chirico side here. I think Hiestand just says, I don't think it's the same fighter, Uncle Weezy.
Yeah, man. I got to tell you, dude. So if you guys want to have a good laugh, you can go to my YouTube channel and look. I did the very first ass shaving of the week I ever did was months ago. And it was Abdulrazak Hiestand, I said, was going to shave Jacob Malkoun's ass, right? And being that wrong about an ass shaving of the week got me so shook that I didn't do a segment for like 3 months. Because when you go out there and you say like, hey, look, this is going to be an ass shaving, and then Malkoun just comes in there and kills this guy. Let's talk about the red flags for Abdulrazak Hiestand, because it's the narrative of this fight is what's driving this line. So we have to talk about it. He had to take time off. If I go to the advanced stats here, I will tell you how much time he had to take off. So we know that that Abdulrazak Hiestand had some allegations against him that were false, and he had to fight a legal battle in order to get reinstated in the UFC. So between September of 2018 and August of 2020, he did not fight. Since he's been back, he missed weight by 4 pounds and then was knocked out or lost to Munir Lazez. Then he missed weight by 4 pounds and was knocked out by a jab by Chaos Williams. Then he was forced to move up to 185 pounds because he missed weight twice. Had trouble making weight again. Got his ass shaved by Jacob Malkoun, making me look like a clown. Okay. And now here we are, 3-fight losing streak. This guy is not the same as he was before the time off. That time off was not his fault. It was a very unfortunate situation, but this is not a kind sport. And when you fall behind, it's really hard to catch back up again. Now, It'd be a little bit easier if he was fighting at 170 still, but guess what? He's not. He's been pushed up to 185 against his will because he can't make 170 anymore. That's his fault. And now he's in a situation where he's getting out-wrestled by a guy who got knocked out in 20 seconds by Phil Hawes. He got knocked out by a jab. He had nothing from Munir Lazzez. Abdul Razak Al-Hassan is most likely done. And he's, how old is he?
I think 35.
He's 35, you guys. This is not the time when you just start to, like, where you circle the wagons and have the second, flourishing time of your career. He's on the downside, and that's why the line is where it's at. I don't believe that the skill differential between Di Chirico and Al-Hassan is minus 250 wide. However, the momentum and where these guys are in their career at this point, it might be minus 1,000, because that's how bad Abdul Razak Al-Hassan has looked. And Di Chirico has just fought the better competition. He's always in close fights, and this guy is beating people that are and knocking them out that aren't on his level. So let's look at the notes here. Very interesting stylistic matchup, you guys. So the measurables advantages all go to Di Chirico because he's the natural middleweight. He's 4 years younger. That's great. 2 inches taller and a 1 inch reach advantage. The experience advantages all are Di Chirico. 4 more professional fights, 70 more minutes of professional cage time, 2 more years as a pro, 1 more UFC fight, 45 more minutes in the UFC cage, and a 77% career finish rate, 46% by knockout, and 31% by sub. So Di Chirico has a number of different ways to beat you. He doesn't just count on his power. He can also get you to the ground and submit you, while Al-Hassan is a one-trick pony. Either he knocks you out in the first round or he gets his ass shaved. And there's really there's no middle ground there. He's got a 100% finish rate in all of his wins. They're all by knockout. They're all in the first round. If he doesn't knock you out in the first round, he loses. And Alessio Di Chirico, God damn it. It's always when my mouse is in the wrong spot. It makes me look like a goddamn amateur. But Alessio Di Chirico has never been knocked out in his career. So that's another big statistic right there that's really making you feel good about a Di Chirico bet. The striking advantages for Al-Hassan are obviously the power that we just spoke of. He's got 6 UFC knockdowns and only 200 significant strikes landed. That's a 3% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, 1.63 knockdowns per 15 minutes. That's about as good as it gets. You will only find maybe 6 or 7 people in the UFC with more than 3 or 4 fights who have, a power percentage in that range. Di Chirico, he lands more than he absorbs. He's got decent power. And he's, in his own right with a 0.9% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. He's averaging 0.44 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And Al-Hassan has been knocked down on 0.43% of the significant strikes he's absorbed. A 63% striking defense for Di Chirico. So maybe that's part of the reason he's never been knocked out, is he's got really nice striking defense. He's good on the feet. So that's, the good striking defense, the fact that Di Chirico has never been knocked out, are a couple of big advantages when you're fighting a guy like Al-Hassan, who's just a one-trick pony. The grappling advantages. Al-Hassan's got a really solid judo base, but he doesn't have great takedown defense. But, with that judo base, you've got some good upper body takedowns, you've got good balance, and you've got some submissions on the ground as well. Di Chirico is an efficient wrestler. He's gotten 11 of the 24 takedown attempts that he's so far in the UFC. So that's 45.83%. He's averaging 1.62 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's out-controlling his opponents by a small margin. And then we add to that the fact that Al-Hassan has had terrible takedown defense in the UFC. He's defending only 23 out of 42 takedown attempts against, allowing 5.16 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's yielding a whopping 42.49% control time against. So Di Chirico getting takedowns at almost a 50% clip, and Al-Hassan, barely defending takedowns at over a 50% clip. definitely a huge path there for Chirico to win minutes on the ground against Alhassan using his takedowns, his top game, and his jiu-jitsu. And if Alhassan doesn't knock him out in the first few minutes, the striking will probably be in the favor of Chirico too. Strength of schedule, Chirico has fought, beaten, and lost to the slightly better and more experienced UFC competition. I see a power advantage for Abdul Razak Alhassan, and I see everything else going to Chirico, including the narratives, including just the momentum, where they are in their career, the age difference, the size difference, the fact that Chirico's a natural middleweight and Alhassan's a natural welterweight. I really feel for Abdul Razak Alhassan because he's a very exciting fighter, and he got off to this great start in the UFC, and then he got this unfortunate situation, and he's come back and he just hasn't been the same fighter. There's no way I could bet him as an underdog here because I need to see him win a fight for me to even begin to entertain the possibility that this guy's going to win another UFC fight. Yeah, man, I'm all over Alessio Chirico here. And frankly, I don't even think the line is wide enough.
Yep, I agree with you there. And it's, I'm surprised they even gave, Alhassan another shot, like he's been just looking horrible. I do want to point out the line here. We do have Chirico opened up as a -155 favorite that quickly went all the way down to -220. Alhassan opened up +125 and is currently +185. I'm with you. I like Chirico. Like you mentioned, Abdul is a one-trick pony. If he does not get that knockout in the first round, he's going to lose. He's never won any different way. And it's hard to see him winning because you mentioned it, Chirico, very good striking defense. Chirico, a very good chin. 18 fights, has never been knocked down. I think he's been knocked down maybe once in his entire career. So, I think if I was Chirico, what I would do, I would go out there, I would grapple right away. I would, get Alhassan to the second round. I'd get this to the second round. Then you can go, outstrike him then. But I would take him down. You saw Jacob Malkoun take him down so many times and have so much success. If I was Chirico, that would be my game plan. But, outside of a first round knockout by Abdul Razak Alhassan, if you do like the Alhassan side, you play him by first round knockout, right? So what kind of surprises me, Uncle Weezy, is I'm taking a look at the fight goes to decision and the fight doesn't go to decision. And I know Abdul Razak Alhassan went to decision his last fight against Malkoun and all that, but we see the fight goes to decision as at -120, and the fight doesn't go to decision as at -120. That kind of interests me a little bit from a violence perspective because obviously if Abdul wins, it's going to be inside the distance. And Chirico is no stranger to getting finishes. Chirico has a 77% finish rate, about half his wins coming by knockout, and then 31% coming by submission as well. So that kind of, in a Abdul Razak Alhassan fight, seeing the fight doesn't go to decision at -120 kind of has me intrigued. So you got to think they're going to set the over/under at 2.5 rounds. Maybe the under could be a look, but any thoughts of that? Does that surprise you as much as it surprises me?
It surprises me, yeah, because that's basically a pick 'em, with just a fatter vig because of it's a prop bet instead of a money line. But yeah, I would pick fight doesn't go because if Abdul does catch him, he's probably going down. I mean, the dude hits like a truck, but like we said, Chirico's got a number of different ways to finish people. He's a complete mixed martial artist. So, I'm heavily on Chirico here. I think he can absolutely get it done inside the distance. But to be honest, I like the -220, -225, -250 money line on Chirico better than I like the -120 on the fight doesn't go because I could see Chirico winning a decision. But dude, to me, that line should be juiced towards, the under or fight doesn't go, not a pick 'em.
Yeah, that surprised me. Also, if you do, want to bet Chirico at that price tag, an easy heads would be Alhassan wins by KO in round one. Like that's Perfect. The only way he's ever won. So if you do want to, play Chirico, maybe parlay him up or play him straight even. And if you do, feel the need to hedge, Alhassan KO round one, or another hedge could be even like the fight doesn't go to decision. I think there's a very good chance that either Alhassan knocks him out early or Chirico gonna finish late there. So decent betting opportunity there. I'm tempted to see what they do. Open up that over under. If the over under is set at 2.5 and it's plus money to the under, I'm probably gonna jump on. Like it just doesn't make sense to me, Weezy.
I agree, man. I would feel way. I mean, if you with it being a pick 'em and you tell me which way you going, fight doesn't go. I mean, that's easy for me. It's an Abdul Razak Al Hassan fight, and DiChirico is no joke, man. He,
Yeah,
like I
he's
say,
good.
he's good all around. He can knock you out. He can sub you, and we've seen that. Abdul Razak Al Hassan's takedown defense is shit. So maybe DiChirico takes him down and subs him too. Yeah, it could be a ground and pound knockout too. I mean, yeah, man, the fight doesn't go, but I really like Alessio DiChirico in this spot. It's another ass shaving waiting to happen, man.
I feel you there. Yeah, Malkoun was not able to finish Abdul Razak Al Hassan, but he did get him in a bunch of very bad spots. I think a guy like DiChirico, a more talented fighter, in my opinion, could definitely take advantage there. So I'm with you. I like DiChirico as well, and I do think he does find a late finish. So we will move on to Makhmud Miradav going against Gerald Meerschaert. We have Miradav, who is 31 years old, 6'2", 75-inch reach, going against Gerald Meerschaert, 33 years old, 6'1", 77-inch reach. Take a look at the last couple fights. We have Makhmud Miradav 5-0 in his last 5 fights. I think he's on like a crazy, I want to say it's like 13 or 14 fight win streak. Like this guy has not lost in a long time. I believe he made his UFC debut against Alessio DiChirico, won by decision there. Had a knockout win against Trevor Smith, very good performance there. And then just recently knocked out Andrew Sanchez in his last fight there. As far as Gerald Meerschaert, on a little bit of skid here, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Did have a split decision loss against Eric Anders, a fight that I personally did score for him. A submission win over Duran Win, a knockout loss to Ian Heinisch, not a great look, and then a knockout loss in like the first 30 seconds against Khamzat Chimaev, and then just got a Bartosz Fabinski submission, which, by the way, I cashed on a Gerald Meerschaert submission prop, which was awesome, but Bartosz gets submitted a ton. So, yeah, in this fight, Weezy, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a clear striker versus grappler, although I think Meerschaert does have some pretty underrated striking. But in this fight, he's going to want this fight on the mat. I do not think he's going to want to strike with Muradov here.
Dude, can we get the violence ticker up on the screen, man? Because I'm loving this fight for a violence bet, dude. I mean, let's just look at the numbers here. But I love the violence on this one, man. This is going to be one of my favorite fights of the night. I am definitely going to be doing a balls deep breakdown on this one. Measurables: Muradov, 2 years younger than Meerschaert, 1 inch taller. Meerschaert will have the 2-inch reach advantage, and he's a southpaw. The experience advantages here. Gerald Meerschaert, definitely much more experienced. He's got 15 more professional fights. We're talking 46 professional fights for Meerschaert and 31 for Muradov. I mean, this is 2 veterans here. We got 50 more minutes of cage time for Meerschaert, 5 more years as a pro. He's fought almost 30% of his pro career at the UFC level, while for Muradov, it's less than 10%. So Meerschaert's been fighting a higher percentage of his pro career at the highest level. He's got 10 more UFC fights, does Meerschaert. He's got 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. He's got gifted submission grappler. I mean, this dude has got 24 career wins by submission, you guys. He's got 32 professional wins, and 24 of them are by submission. 75% finish rate by submission. And 6 by knockout. So this guy has got 30 of 32 professional wins coming inside the distance, man. That is nuts, dude. That's 94%. 94% in a 46-fight sample size with 32 wins. So we got that violence ticker up there for a reason. Not only does Meerschaert have a 94% finish rate, but Muradov has been finished inside the distance 4 out of 6 times, 3 of those times coming by way of submission. So we got a clear path to victory here for Gerald Meerschaert by submission. And Muradov, he's got an 80% finish rate in his own right as a pro. 20 of 25 pro wins, 80% coming by way of finish. 17 knockouts and 3 submissions. And guess what? Meerschaert has been finished inside the distance on 11 of his 14 professional losses. So not only do we have an inside the distance path for Meerschaert by submission, but we've got an inside the distance path for Muradov by knockout, as 21% of Meerschaert's pro losses have come by way of knockout. And in Meerschaert's 6 UFC losses, 3 of them have come by way of knockout. Oh, dude, do I love the violence bet here, Brady. It's screaming violence. Oh, God, these numbers, they just line up beautifully here. The striking advantages for Muradov. This dude in a 3-fight sample size, so we can't get way too out over our skis here, but still, fantastic ratios, nice power from Muradov. He's landing 5.32 significant strikes a minute, and he's only absorbing 2.92. It's a significant strike differential of 2.4. That's crazy. 2.4 more significant strikes landed per minute than absorbed. That's dominance. He's landing a knockdown on 0.45% of his significant strikes landed. He's averaging 0.36 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And Meerschaert has been chinny, absorbing a knockdown on 0.91% of the significant strikes he's absorbed. Muradov has also been very hard to hit. He's showing a 65% striking defense thus far in the UFC. And then Meerschaert, he's a better grappler than a striker, obviously. However, he's not been completely outclassed in the striking, and he's shown decent power, showing 0.66% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed and averaging 0.33 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And the grappling advantages, Muradov in the UFC, he prefers to keep the fight standing, obviously. He's a professional kickboxer. So he's spent 95% of his fights thus far in the UFC at striking range. So not only is Muradov a striker, but he's also very adept at keeping the fight in the striking range so that he's going to be at his most comfortable. And that shows when we see that Muradov has 2.41% control time for and 2.81% control time against. So barely over, 5% of his fights take place in control time positions. So that's deadly. If you're a grappler and that your opponent is only, in control time positions 5% of the time, that means 19 out of every 20 seconds you're going to be kickboxing with a better kickboxer. So Muradov in the grappling, really, he's only gotten one takedown in 3 fights, and he doesn't look for takedowns, but he's been very adept using his grappling in reverse to keep the fight standing. Now, Meerschaert is very comfortable in the grappling exchanges, and if we look at his fights, over 50% of Gerald Meerschaert's fights have taken place in grappling exchanges, in control time positions. So 50% for Meerschaert, 5% for Muradov. So big time clash of styles here. It's a striker versus grappler matchup. And thus far in the UFC, Mahmoud Miradav has 100% takedown defense. So Meerschaert's an efficient wrestler, though. He's gotten 14 of 32 takedown attempts. That's 43.75%. And he's averaging 2.28 takedowns per 15 minutes and 1.79 submission attempts for 15 minutes, which is very high. Over 50% of his fights taking place in control time positions, definite clash of styles, striker versus grappler, like I said. The strength of schedule advantages here. Meerschaert has fought, beaten, and lost to the tougher UFC competition, period. Muradov has actually beaten the more experienced UFC competition with a ratio of 1.08. But, Meerschaert's ratio in his wins is 1.23. It's a little bit better than Muradov's 1.08. But if we look at Muradov's wins, they're over guys with 9 total fights, while for Meerschaert, it's only 4. So maybe Muradov's wins just a little bit better than Meerschaert's. But I think the overall strength of schedule definitely goes to Gerald Meerschaert with a 1.42 ratio compared to 1.08 for Makhmud. So yeah, clear striker versus grappler matchup. Muradov's shown fantastic takedown defense. But boy, the violence bet is just calling my name in this fight.
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal violent spot. And yeah, I'm on the Muradov side pretty heavy here. He has great takedown defense, officially 100% of the UFC, but you go back and watch some of his fights outside of the UFC and still shows very good takedown defense. He looks very, very strong. So I'll say this, if Meerschaert is not able to get Muradov down to the mat, it's going to be a rough night for Gerald Meerschaert. Because although I do think Meerschaert, he has been improving his striking, he's going to be nowhere near the level of this guy Muradov. He's a phenomenal striker, and I think for Meerschaert to win, it's going to have to go down to the mat, and I just don't see that happening, and we can definitely see why Muradov is the biggest favorite on the card. Muradov opened up as a minus 235 favorite, and he is currently minus 500 here, so I definitely get it. could be a potential parlay piece. I do see him minus 400 bet MGM. I believe that is DraftKings minus 450. I think he does win, but yeah, I'm more so interested in that violent spot like you, Uncle Weezy. But the problem is the bookies, they are all over it. With the widest line for a fight is a good decision on the entire week is minus 385. Minus 385 fight isn't go to decision. I'm curious to see what they do set the over under at, probably 1.5 rounds. Maybe it could be a good under one. I'm not really into playing the under 1.5s, but this is an instance where I think it could go under 1.5 there. Any thoughts on that? Does the minus 1.3, does the minus 385, maybe a good parlay piece?
That's so disappointing because I didn't look at the lines, and I feel like a jerk, being like, guys, I'm telling you, this fight isn't going to go to decision. And the bookies are already saying, yeah, dumbass, of course, we believe that too, So, yeah, I'd like the under 1.5. If you could get close to even money on it, I think it'd be a lot more interesting. But man, minus 385, it's a good parlay piece. And guess what? There's a lot of good parlay pieces on this card, man. Mana Martinez money line. We talked about the DiChirico money line. We talked about what was the other ass shaving that I was talking about? Oh, am I already forgetting? Even Aldrich. It looks like a safe bet. There's a lot of parlay pieces on this card. Maybe we can put together a degenerate 5-leg parlay for plus money here on a lot of these, chalky spots.
Yep, definitely. And I'm with you. I like the under 1.5, assuming it's going to be set there, which definitely will be. Probably get plus money on. I don't know what it is, but every week these over 1.5 bets are like the most popular bet of the week, and they never seem to really work out. Last week it was William Knight against Fabio Charant. Looked like to be one of the most popular bets of the week. Did not work out there. I think that maybe we do get plus money on under 1.5. And I kind of like that. I think Makhmud Miradav has a very good chance of finishing him early. And if Mearshart is able to get this fight down to the mat somehow, I think a sub could happen there. So yeah, definitely looking at the under 1.5. Muradov inside the distance. Muradov by knockout. Fight doesn't go to decision as a parlay piece if I do choose to do one. Muradov as a parlay piece should be fine. But yeah, I'm thinking violence as well on this one. All right, so we will move on to, we have a tough fight here. We have Andre Petroski going against Michael Gilmore, a fight that I'm really looking forward to see. We have Petroski, who is 30 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. Michael Gilmore, 34 years old, 5'11", 74-inch reach. So Michael Gilmore did come in on short notice. Somebody from Tough did get injured, and they had to bring him in on a couple days' notice. He went in there and got submitted, I believe, in the first round. And yeah, this is a fight that I'm not really sure why it was made, to be honest, but I kind of see that, maybe Dana wanted to kind of thank Gilmore for coming in on short notice. That's really the only thing I can think of, because I think this is a pretty big mismatch, and we'll definitely talk about why. But in terms of the last couple fights, obviously both guys making their UFC debut. Petroski is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, same as Gilmore there. I think the better level of competition does go to the Petroski side. But yeah, Uncle Weezy, very, very fun fight, I guess. A very lopsided fight, it looks like, at least on paper. Anything stick out to you on this one?
Yeah, not a lot of stats here. We have got no stats actually for UFC, but yeah, Petroski's younger. He's an inch taller. He's on a 1-inch reach disadvantage, a switch stance fighter, slightly less experienced than Gilmore. Gilmore's been in the game about 3 more years. We see Gilmore with a 60% finish rate by knockout, but 100% of his losses have been inside the distance by submission. And we do see that Petroski is a very good submission artist. He's finishing 100% of his fights inside the distance, and his only loss comes inside the distance. So all 6 of Petroski's fights have finished inside the distance, and 6 of Gilmore's 8 fights have finished inside the distance. So this is a violence bet for sure. Yep. And this is also probably most likely an ass shaving. We saw that Gilmore here didn't have much in his fight. He took it on super short notice. This was a guy who basically quit his job hoping to get an opportunity to be an alternate on the Ultimate Fighter, and it happened for him. He got his fight. He stepped up on super short notice and sacrificed a lot to get that opportunity. And I believe that, that them sending him in there against Urbina on 1 day's notice, it was rough, so they probably figured, look, this guy quit his job. He hung out in Vegas on his own dime, hoping for an alternate shot. And then we put him into a fight on 1 day's notice. He got his ass shaved, so let's give him another chance. Let's give him a chance to train for the fight. But, it just kind of looks like Petroski's the better prospect here. He's the more well-rounded mixed martial artist. He's got more ways to win. And, if you look at Gilmore's Tapology page, the victories are not anything that we're going to write home about here. This looks to be a pretty clear one-sided fight that will finish inside the distance here. There seems to be a pretty big skill gap between these two guys. I'm picking Petroski by ass shaving. Get it done inside the distance.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the Petroski side as well. I actually think he's a really good fighter. Very, very strong, very good wrestling, and very good grappling as well. And he is a finisher. He has finished 100% of his weight, 100% of his wins, 60% by knockout, 40% by submission. And Gilmore has been finished in 100% of his losses, all three coming by submission, and did get submitted on the Ultimate Fighter as well. And yeah, you take a look at it. Michael Gilmore submitted by a 2-0 fighter. Ricky Miller submitted by an 0-0 Willis Black a few years back, and then submitted by an 2-0 Randy Patino as well. So when he is losing, it is inside the distance, and it looks like it is in two of them were in round one, and one is in round two. The guy cannot stuff a takedown. I really question his grappling defense as well. And, Petroski, I do think he has some upside. I think he's very good. I think he's very green still. What I don't like is that gas tank, but I think it doesn't really matter. I think he's going to get in here, get a takedown on Gilmore, and probably finish the fight shortly after. I just don't really see where Gilmore poses many problems, like on the feet potentially, but you got to think Petroski coming in here is going to go for takedowns early and often and have a ton of success in that aspect. So I definitely do see why Petroski is a huge favorite. I definitely see that. So we do see a line here. Petroski opening up for some reason, Uncle Weezy, minus 175. If I had access to that line, it'd be a max bet. But
that would have been such an easy max bet.
Immediately got down to minus 300. It's currently at minus 400. And I expect this line by the time it's fight time, I think he very well could be the biggest favorite on the entire card. I mean, once people start looking into this matchup and seeing how lopsided one side of this fight is, I can see him, being like minus 600, minus 650 by the time the fight does start. So, yeah, I like Petroski here. I do like him inside the distance. One thing that we did note was Petroski, 100% finish rate, has never won a decision, and Gilmore has never lost a decision. 3 losses by submission. What is Petroski really good at? Wrestling and grappling. I think a sub is very likely, and I think it's very early as well. I think Petroski as a parlay piece isn't the worst idea in the world. BetMGM actually has Petroski minus 300. I'm currently interested in seeing what they have FanDuel and DraftKings opens up Petroski at, because, I'm not, like I said, I'm trying to stay away from the parlays for the most part this year, but this is a week where I think, parlays could be decent, Uncle Weezy. I see a lot of potential parlay spots this week, and Petroski is definitely one of them. I think it's a very good fight for him. So in terms of the fight goes to decision, the fight doesn't go to decision, actually not horrible. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 265. And the fight goes to decision plus 185. You're assuming the over-under probably set at 1.5 rounds. I like violence here, Uncle Weezy. I like Petroski. I like him inside the distance. I'm hoping I can get somewhat of a good line on Petroski inside the distance. But, as far as a parlay piece, I don't think Petroski is that bad of an option.
Dude, this week's card coming up is the polar opposite of last week's card, where we didn't even have one favorite that was minus 200 or better. And then this week, I think by the time the fights roll around, if all these fights stay on, we're going to see like 4 or 5 guys that are minus 350 or better in the odds here. There's a ton of parlay pieces on this card, and there were really none last week. So, this is a much more one-sided, low-level card than last week was.
Yep, I agree. And like how does Michael Gilmore, win this fight? Like maybe a knockout, maybe Petroski completely gasses out. I mean, I just don't really, give much of a chance to Gilmore outside of like a random knockout. So I agree with the line. Honestly, it could probably be even wider. And I will be having a play on Petroski in some type of fashion, whether it is a violence bet or maybe it is a parlay piece. But I do like Petroski quite a bit. And should be probably an ass shaving. So we'll move on to the next fight. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this fight. Probably the fight I'm most looking forward to. This fight's great. Kevin Lee going against Daniel Rodriguez. Kevin Lee is 28 years old, 5'9", 77-inch reach, going against Daniel Rodriguez, who is 34 years old, 6'1", 74-inch reach. So Kevin Lee coming up a weight class here, coming off of some major injuries as well. Kevin Lee is going to be 6 years younger. He's going to be at a 4-inch height disadvantage, and he's going to actually have a 3-inch reach advantage here against Daniel Rodriguez. As far as the last few fights, we're going to see a massive, massive discrepancy in the level competition between the two. Kevin Lee is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win over Edson Barboza, a decision loss to Al Iaquinta, a submission loss to Rafael dos Anjos, a knockout win over Gregor Gillespie, and then a submission to the champ lost Charles Oliveira. So no shame in that whatsoever. No shame in some of those losses whatsoever. Fighting very good competition. Whereas Daniel Rodriguez, fighting, not the best competition in the world, but also not the worst competition in the world. But this is clearly a massive, massive step up for D-Rod here. D-Rod got a decision win over Gabe Green, a knockout win, and one of the most exciting one-round fights you'll ever see against Dwight Grant. A decision loss to Nicholas Dalby, and then a decision win over Mike Perry, and then just recently knocked out Preston Parsons. So, yeah, you see it right there. There's a huge discrepancy in the level of competition. But, in terms of the stats, Uncle Weezy, I'm really curious to see what you have here for us.
This is going to be such a good fight. I'll be pissed off if this one falls off, man. This is oh, God, D-Rod against Kevin Lee. I'm so fired up for this one, man. Let's get into it. If we go to the measurables here, we got Lee is 6 years younger. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage. Daniel Rodriguez, however, is the natural welterweight here. Lee is a lightweight that had a lot of hard times making weight, so he's been pushed up to 170. I believe this is only his second UFC fight at 170 pounds in 17 fights. I'll have to go double check that, but Rodriguez is the natural welterweight here, the bigger guy, 4 inches taller. And when it comes to experience, Kevin Lee is the more experienced mixed martial artist here with 7 more pro fights, 100 more minutes of cage time, 3 more years as a pro, 10 more UFC fights. Almost 75% of Lee's pro experience is at the UFC level, while for D-Rod, it's about 40%. 120 more minutes in the UFC cage for Lee, 11 of 18 pro wins inside the distance, 8 submissions, and 3 knockouts. And Daniel Rodriguez has an 80% finish rate in his own right as a pro, 12 of 15 pro fights finished inside the distance, 8 by knockout, 4 by submission. And Lee has been finished in 4 of his 6 losses. So there could be a path for an inside the distance win for Rodriguez here. Striking. Lee has nice ratios and differences. He's landing 4 significant strikes and only absorbing 3.31. He's been knocked down twice in 650 significant strikes absorbed, so he's not chinny. While Rodriguez is a really crisp, smooth boxer. He uses his length well. He uses his jab. He's got fantastic UFC striking numbers, great efficiency, tons of volume, and he's excellent at keeping the fight standing. He lands 8.07 significant strikes a minute, while Kevin Lee lands 4. And he's only absorbing 5.71 significant strikes a minute. So over like 2.3 significant strike differential for Daniel Rodriguez here. 0.66% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. He's averaging 0.8 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And he's got a 56.65% striking defense. He's the far better striker here compared to Lee. Lee, though, coming off of a head kick knockout off of over Gregor Gillespie. So we do know that Lee absolutely has the ability to be dangerous on the feet. It's just that if we look at his knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, we'll see that he has 1 knockdown in 784 significant strikes. So even though it was a highlight reel and it was a spectacular win over Gregor Gillespie, Rodriguez is going to be the better striker here. Grappling advantages. Kevin Lee is a relentless wrestler, and he's been fantastic using that wrestling in the UFC. He's very heavy on top. He favors position over submission. He's got 43 of 99 takedown attempts have been successful for him. That's a 43.84% takedown accuracy. And Lee is out controlling his opponents at a 44 to 7.5% clip. That's huge. That's like a 6-to-1 ratio of control time to control time against. So Kevin Lee has been fantastic at using his wrestling to win minutes, win rounds, and win fights. He's averaging 3.29 takedowns per 15 minutes and 0.84 submission attempts per 15 minutes. Now, Rodriguez, we know that he prefers to keep the fight standing. And thus far in 7 UFC fights, he has successfully defended 15 of 18 takedown attempts against, 83.33%. And we also do have to keep in mind that Kevin Lee's been taking down lightweights not welterweights. So this is going to be a much bigger dude than he's used to wrestling. Over 90% of Daniel Rodriguez's fights have taken place at striking range, so he is very good at keeping the fight where he's most comfortable. He's 5 of 9 on takedowns in his own right, so he's getting 1 takedown per 15 minutes. Add to that fact that Rodriguez is such a good boxer. He's very good at keeping the fight standing. But if the fight does go to the ground, this guy's a black belt under Eddie Bravo in the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu system. So this guy is no fish out of water on the ground. So even if Lee does get this fight to the ground, he's going to be playing with a guy that's got a black belt and is a very good submission grappler in his own right. 27% of Daniel Rodriguez's pro wins have been by submission. That's 4 out of 15. So he's no joke. The guy is really good on the feet, but if the fight goes to the ground, he can absolutely submit you. And I believe he does have a guillotine submission win over Tim Means, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Rodriguez has more than one way to finish you. He's a fantastic striker, but he is very far from being a one-trick pony here. Strength of schedule advantages. Look, this is easy. Kevin Lee has fought, beaten, and lost to the tougher and more experienced competition in the UFC. He's fought a higher percentage of his pro career at the highest level. 75% of Kevin Lee's professional career has been at the UFC level, while for Rodriguez, it's 40%. The last 5 opponents for Lee were Charles Oliveira, Gregor Gillespie, Rafael Dos Anjos, Raging Al Iaquinta, and Edson Barboza. So he has been absolutely fighting killers, while Daniel Rodriguez beat Preston Parsons, Mike Perry, Dwight Grant, Gabe Green, and he lost the decision to Dalby, but we know that was pretty much a win. I mean, Daniel Rodriguez could easily be 7-0 in the UFC.
Yep.
This is such a good fight, Brady. I can't wait for this one, man.
Yeah, I can't wait. Probably my favorite fight on the entire card, to be honest. I'm a big D-Rod guy. I like what he brings to the table. The volume, you mentioned, his volume numbers are just crazy. I mean, attempting 16.54 strikes per minute. That's insane. That's unheard of.
That's nuts, man. That's crazy volume.
It's unheard. It's exciting. Like, his fights are very exciting as well. But he's not just a striker. I mean, you mentioned he's a legit grappler. I know we haven't got to see it that much, but he did submit Tim Means, who I do believe is a black belt, and showed some phenomenal takedown defense in a lot of his fights. So, what scares me, Uncle Weezy, and it's probably why I'm not going to pull the trigger on it on Dan Rodriguez. It's just the level of competition. I mean, it's hard to debate how much of a difference in the level of competition. Kevin Lee, you mentioned some of the fighters he's losing to. Yeah. Charles Oliveira, Rafael Dos Anjos, Al Iaquinta, Tony Ferguson, Leonardo Santos back in the day as well. Beating guys like Gregor Gillespie, Edson Barboza, Michael Chiesa. So it's just really hard to dispute that. But in terms of this fight, Kevin Lee coming up a weight class, D-Rod's going to be the bigger fighter. Kevin Lee coming off of 2 major injuries as well. I think D-Rod has the tools to pose some problems here. He's well-rounded everywhere. Great striking, great grappling, great takedown defense. In terms of a pick, I'm gonna pick the dog in D-Rod. I'm gonna pick D-Rod to win the fight, but what scares me is indeed that level of competition. It's sticking out like a sore thumb, Uncle Weezy. It's just hard to ignore that Kevin Lee has been fighting the best of the best, and D-Rod's fighting Preston Parsons, Gabe Green. So I'll pick Dan Rodriguez. I just don't know if I'll get there from a betting perspective. And we'll take a look at the line. And we have Dan Rodriguez is a dog opening up plus 110, currently plus 135. Kevin Lee opening up minus 130, minus 155 currently. In terms of the fight goes or fight doesn't go, the fight goes to decision is minus 115. And the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 125. No real, strong read on the fight goes or fight doesn't go. I could see a potential finish, but I could also very well see it going to decision as well. So for me, I'm going to pick D-Rod, but the strength of schedule is something that's probably going to push me away in terms of betting it.
I agree. I think I'm going to pick Daniel Rodriguez. I might even bet it because I think Kevin Lee's biggest advantage here is going to be the fact that he's fought the way tougher competition, but we have to keep in mind he's fighting lightweights, Mm-hmm. And Daniel Rodriguez is basically 7-0 against welterweights. So you do have the step up in competition for Daniel Rodriguez. It's a big step up coming up to Kevin Lee. The guy's a fucking stud. But it's also a step up in competition for Kevin Lee because he's fighting a much bigger body. And dude, those big bodies, they're so hard to take down, man. You saw Parker Porter trying to take down Chase Sherman. You know, these big dudes, these tall dudes, they're very difficult to take down. Daniel Rodriguez is 6'1". He's going to find a base if you try to take him down. And he can also attack submissions, and he's got a sick guillotine. I'm picking Daniel Rodriguez to win this fight, man. I'm not, and I am probably going to bet it. Okay. I can't wait for this fight. Both of these guys are so good, and I'm really anxious to see how Kevin Lee looks at welterweight.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where the line's going to move throughout the week as well. Like, I wonder if more money is going to come in on Kevin Lee because of that experience, because of the level of competition. But SD Crusader brings up a really crazy point here. Kevin Lee has not won a decision since 2016, and that really sticks out to me because that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fights ago was the last time he won a decision. And the reason that sticks out is because you're not finishing D-Rod. You're not finishing D-Rod, not by submission, and you are not knocking this guy out. This guy has a steel chin, never been knocked out, and probably never will. So, yeah, does that stick out to you, man? I mean, it hasn't won a decision. Do you see him?
The way that he came back from that starching from Grant cracked him, you know? Yeah. And he not only did he come back, but he came back and put a pace on him and finished him. Yeah, you're not knocking out D-Rod. You're just not. And he's never been finished. Lee has been finished.
Yes.
But I think the problem why Lee has been finished is because he was cutting too much weight to get down to 155. He was gassing out. He had staph infection when he fought Dos Anjos and gassed out in that fight and got subbed. But, you know, hopefully now up here at 170, he's going to be in a situation where he's in better condition. He's not cutting as much weight. You're not knocking out D-Rod, though. Yeah, this is very interesting in terms of the over-under. I really am having a hard time looking one way or the other here.
Yeah, I feel you there. But, yeah, I'm going to see where that line goes throughout the week. D-Rod could be something to look at, man. He very well could. So we'll move on, and we do have another tough fight here, and we have a pretty good one. This fight should be, you know, very exciting. Two very exciting guys. I really enjoyed watching them on The Ultimate Fighter. We have Ricky Turcios going against Brady Hiestand. We have Turcios, who is 28 years old, 5'9", 71-inch reach, going against Brady Hiestand, who is 22 years old, 5'8", 71-inch reach. As far as their level of competition, I'll get into it a little bit after you speak there, but Brady Hiestand is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, and Turcios is 3-2. What I will say is, you know, Turcios has fought in the much better competition. His losses include guys like Boston Salmon. His losses include guys like Mana Martinez, who we do see on this card. And whereas Brady Hiestand, you take a look at the level of competition, man, and it just really, you know, makes you scratch your head. I know he's 22 years old, but listen to some of the guys he's been beating. So he beat a 1-12 fighter in his last fight, 1-12, rear naked choke first round. He loses to a 9-5 fighter prior to that, and win over an 0-6 guy. Prior to that, a win over an 0-4 guy. Prior to that, a win over an 0-0 guy. And prior to that, a win over an 0-2 guy. So he's beaten one fighter with a win on the record, and that one fighter with that win is 1-12. 1-12, where you have Turcios, who is actually fighting some, you know, pretty solid competition. Like I mentioned, his losses over guys like Mana Martinez, he got knocked out. No shame in that. He hits like a truck. Losses to Boston Salmon, and I do see that he has a win over Steve Garcia. Back in 2016, Steve Garcia was in the UFC. So, yeah, you know, in terms of competition, you know, it definitely goes in the Ricky Turcios fight side. But, yeah, this fight's going to be very exciting, man. I'm looking forward to it. Anything stick out to you here?
Yeah, you know, he stands young, you know, 22 years old. So he's got a lot of improving to do. And clearly, even though a lot of these wins were over, you know, less than good competition, he's still very young, and he's still in a place in his career where he's going to be improving and adding to that toolbox every year. It's just funny, man. You know, I saw that kid, and I'm like, man, he doesn't look like a fighter. He looks like he should be like a counselor at a camp for like wholesome Christian kids, you know, like giving a speech with his girlfriend about the joys of abstinence to all the people at the camp, you know, like that's kind of like how I picture Brady. But damn, this kid's tough. He's a good wrestler. He's got a lot of really good control time. I watched his tough fights in the house, and, you know, he executed his game plan beautifully in both of them. Really good wrestler. I like wrestlers. He's getting top control. He gets good ground and pound, and he seems to understand who he is and fights to his strengths. So some really good signs there on Hiestand. But you're right about Turcios. He's by far fought the much better regional scene competition here. And he's even got some really good wins on his record too. It's not just he's losing to good guys. He's beaten some really good names too. Yep. So I think Turcios definitely more experienced. He's fought the better competition. And he's got probably the more well-rounded game. He could probably hurt you striking. He's got good wrestling. He's got some decent submissions and stuff like that. He's got a win by submission. He's got 3 wins by knockout. And, Hiestand has been knocked out in his only pro loss. But Hiestand, is getting submissions and knockouts too. 2 wins by submission, 2 wins by knockout, 1 by decision. Yeah, I like Brady here. I think he might be able to control Turcios and use a game plan to kind of tire him out, take away some of that movement, some of that volume that Turcios throws so much. But we'll see, dude. It's hard to bet on these guys. We just haven't seen enough of Brady Hiestand yet. But what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, Brady is a beast, man. This guy goes after it. And you mentioned a lot of things that I was going to bring up. He knows his strengths. He knows he's not, the best striker in the world. He's very, very hittable. Definitely does block punches with his face. Ricky does as well. Both guys are very, very tough. But yeah, Brady does go after those takedowns early and often. Very good grappler. Brady does, train with guys like Michael Chiesa, whereas Ricky Turcios, training a team alpha male. Both guys are brown belts in BJJ. And what I noticed in the tape is Ricky gets taken down quite a bit. He gets taken down a lot, but with that said, he is very, very active. This guy is a wild man. He kind of reminds me of like a Brandon Royval, where he's always doing something. This guy is crazy. Like on his back, he's throwing up elbows, throwing up triangles. He is so active off his back. Great scrambling ability as well. So I think Brady can get takedowns. I'm just curious to see what the grappling exchanges are going to look like, because Ricky's no slouch in the grappling department by any means. And if Ricky can get on top, Ricky's pretty good on top. And, as far as the striking goes, I think it's a clear advantage to Ricky. A lot of volume, much better striking, whereas Brady, more of one shot at a time, one big shot that tends to not land all that much, and just very hittable as well as Brady. And, I'm going to go with a more well-rounded guy here in Ricky personally, but there will be paths to victory for Brady. I mean, he can definitely get takedowns here. Ricky can indeed be taken down, and taken down quite a bit. It's just, off his back, he is very, very good, and his scrambling's very good. And, we mention it a lot of times, like Brady's going to be going for a ton of takedowns if Ricky's able to, either A, stuff those takedowns, B, scramble up and just make them work. I think the cardio of Ricky is going to be in his favor. Brady has solid cardio himself, but Ricky has like unreal cardio, off the charts cardio, and off the charts toughness as well. So I'll go Ricky. The line is pretty interesting because I do see this as a little bit of a closer fight than the line does indicate. And we do see that Ricky Turcios is minus 175, opening up minus 170, and Brady opening up plus 140, currently plus 145. Yeah, I think the line should be just a little bit closer because I do see a path to victory for Brady, but I'll go with a more experienced, well-rounded guy here in Ricky. Fight goes to decision, minus 165. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus 125. I'm kind of leaning towards the fight goes, but minus 165. Probably not going to touch it there. I will be picking Ricky to win by decision, but all in all, this fight is going to be wild. Both of these guys are extremely exciting, and one of my favorite fights on the card here.
Agreed, man. This is going to be a good one. Turcios is so fun to watch. He's very likable. I really enjoyed just listening to him talk. He's got a really interesting take on life. Seems like a really cool dude. And this guy, he's the kind of fighter that I like to bet on. And I was just going to bring up what Nigel just said there, is that he sticks to his game plan. Those are the kind of fighters you want to bet on, Like last night when I'm watching Mark Madsen and I've got 3 fucking units on him and he hasn't shot a takedown in the second round, that's the kind of thing. It's like you cash the bet and you're still angry at yourself. If I bet on a guy like Brady Hiestand, I'm betting that, yeah, he's going to do what I've seen him do successfully in the past, which is go for takedowns. And I like that plus money at plus 145, plus 150 on Brady Hiestand here because he sticks to his game plan. He's good at executing it. And I think he's a little bit bigger and stronger than Ricky here. So I think there's a path to victory. Like you say, I don't know if I'm going to bet it, but I'm excited for this fight. These are 2 really interesting prospects. And I'm really interested to see how the young man Brady does here.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, that Ricky seems like he's not like really physically strong, whereas Brady is going to be the much stronger fighter. So yeah, definitely I do agree there. But, all in all, it's going to be a great fight. I'm probably not going to bet anything. I'm on the Ricky side, but I to be honest, I don't really love the line there. So I'm going to sit back and watch this one. No strong lean on the over, no strong lean on the under, but I'm just going to sit back and watch it. It's going to be a phenomenal fight there. So we will move on to, believe we have the co-main event here, and another tough fight, and it's going to be a good one. We have Gilbert Urbina going against Bryan Battle. Urbina is 25 years old, 6'3". 74-inch reach going against Battle, who's 26 years old, 6'1", 77-inch reach. So Urbina is actually coming in on short notice. It was supposed to be Tristan Gore. Gore got injured, so in steps Gilbert Urbina. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight. We have Bryan Battle, who's going to be 2 inches smaller, but he's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. And you're just watching Bryan Battle. He fights very, very long in there. He's very long, very rangy, and it's going to be a good fight. We have Urbina, who is 4-1. In his last 5 fights. Something notable in there is he did lose a decision to Sean Brady, somebody that a lot of people, including me, are very high on. And we have Bryan Battle in there, who is also 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So very interesting fight, very close fight on paper, but I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this one, Weezy.
Yeah, I'm just don't have much for you on this one. Urbina's bigger. He's probably the better grappler here. Battle should be better on the feet. If we look at the experience numbers, they're pretty damn close to identical in terms of number of fights. But it looks like Bryan Battle's been a pro for about 2 years, while for Gilbert, it's been about 7. So, Gilbert will be the more experienced guy here, even though he only has one more fight. And, and he's part of a fighting family. So, God knows Gilbert's probably been scrapping with his older brother since he was a kid, And Bryan Battle, relatively new to the game, but he's got a good frame. He's got length, nice striking. He looked really good in the house.
Yeah,
Battle's got an 80% finish rate, 4 out of his 5 wins inside the distance. His only loss coming inside the distance, while for Urbina, only a 50% finish rate. And in his one loss, he was not finished by Sean Brady. So I don't think Bryan Battle's going to finish Gilbert Urbina here if Sean Brady couldn't. But, it's fighting. We never know what's going to happen here. In terms of the level of competition, you'd have to give it to Urbina just because he's fought, Sean Brady. I guess I'm leaning Urbina here, but, it's hard to know. There's just not enough meat on the bone here. And you see these tough fights, but, they're against lower level competition as it is. Or I think Urbina's only win was against that guy, the short notice replacement, right? Or no, that was
Urbina. That was Urbina, yeah.
Oh, that was Urbina. Okay, yeah. So boy, I'm not touching this one, dude. Do you have anything on this?
I don't really have like a strong lean, but I'm personally on the Battle side. I really like what I see in this guy. He's very long, very rangy. He's going to have the striking advantage. Gilbert's probably going to want to get this fight down to the mat. But what I noticed is Battle has pretty solid takedown defense and a pretty decent submission game as well. I kind of think of him as like more of a striker, but he's subbed like 60% of his wins. So decent submission threat there. And Gilbert Urbina against Tristan Gore, man, did he show just how hittable he is. I mean, this guy has no striking defense, hands down low, and Gore knocked him down 4 times and knocked him out the 4th time. It was a brutal knockout there. And by the way, wish we were seeing Gore against Battle. That would have been a great fight. But yeah, Urbina, he's solid, but I do think that Battle is going to be able to keep this on the feet and probably outstrike him here. I mean, Battle is more defensively sound. Battle's going to have the volume advantage, and I don't really see Urbina having much success in terms of getting a takedown and really having success down there. So especially on short notice as well. So I like Battle here, just not enough. I think it's going to be closer than the line does indicate, though. We see Battle is a pretty decent sized favorite, opening up as a -129, currently -170. And Urbina opening up -101 and currently +140. Fight goes the distance, -140. Fight doesn't go the distance, +110. Not really any strong lean there as well. But yeah, I'm going to sit back and watch this one. The pick for me will be Battle. I think he's going to outstrike Urbina. Again, more defensively sound. I think he's a better striker, and Battle has shown some very good takedown defense and also a solid submission game as well. So give me Battle here, but am I going to lay the -170? Probably not.
Yeah, and I think one good thing to bring up here that I just noticed is that Bryan Battle, 6 fights in 2 years. So 3 fights per year and then the tough house. While Urbina, it's 7 fights in 7 years. So one of the reasons to like Battle is he's just been way more active. And then you brought up an excellent point in the Gore fight. Urbina was very hittable. So if Battle shows some accuracy, can stop some takedowns, he'll probably, have the advantage on the feet. Urbina's not a fish out of water on the feet, though. He's a decent striker, too. It's just, but you made a great point that Gore was hitting him hard and putting him down several times. So, yeah, I'm probably leaning Battle here, but I'm not running to the window to bet any aspect of this fight at the moment.
Yeah, I think pass is probably the better option. On a card like this with so many great spots, I'd probably stay away from this one. So now we shall get into the main event. Before we do so, if y'all can hit the like button, we are at 97 likes. Can we get 3 more to hit 100? That'd be awesome. 166 of you hanging out in the chat. Appreciate it. Every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Me and Uncle Weezy give an early look to next week's card. Also, do want to point out the new DraftKings show. If you guys have not heard about it yet, tune in Tuesday, every Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, where me, Uncle Weezy, Z, and Luke from Starring with Reality go over the card from a DraftKings standpoint. We also all do a lineup at the end, and tune in Tuesday to see how we all did last week. Can't wait to talk about that, but should be a fun show there. And yeah, just again, thank you so much for hanging out. I do want to shout out the chat a little bit. We have the General in the chat. We have Blades in the chat. Sosa hanging out still. Bo Jackson, Joshua, About Better. Nigel Lee. We have Ben hanging out. Mark. We have Melon hanging out. Nigel Lee. Dan in there as well. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. The show would not be the same without you guys hanging out. So let's get to this main event, a very intriguing main event, Uncle Weezy. I feel like there's going to be a lot of really hot takes on both sides this week. You're going to have the kind of the fan favorite of Giga Chikadze, an up-and-comer that's been looking phenomenal. And then you have the kind of the veteran Edson Barboza. I think it's going to be a very, very fun fight, very exciting fight. And I'm looking forward to it. We have Edson Barboza, who's going to be the older fighter, 35 years old. He is 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. Going against Giga Chikadze, who is 32 years old, 6 foot with a 74-inch reach. In terms of the last few fights, Giga Chikadze won a split decision against Jamal Emerson in a fight where I thought he lost it. Did have a decision win over Erwin Rivera, a decision win against Omar Morales, and then a knockout win against Jamie Simmons. And then Cub Swanson, he knocked him out, which is the best win of Giga Chikadze's career by a significant margin. As far as Edson Barboza, got knocked out by Justin Gaethje, a split decision loss against Paul Felder, a split decision loss against Dan Egan, a fight that I thought Edson, got it done. But the judges gave it to Ige there. And then a decision win over Makwan Amarikani. And then a brutal knockout against Shane Burgos. One of the weirder knockouts you ever see where, Burgos took a ton of damage all fight. And then out of nowhere, just, kind of falls down. Very scary knockout. But just shows you how dangerous Edson Barboza is. So something you can see right away is just the level of competition difference. Justin Gaethje, Paul Felder, Dan Ige, Shane Burgos, guys like that, where, Giga Chikadze is arguably losing to a Jamal Emerson. Giga's taken Erwin Rivera to decision. Omar Morales, that was a good win. That kind of opened my eyes. I think that was Giga's best performance up until the Cub Swanson win there, and then that's currently his best performance there. But yeah, the Omar Morales win kind of really opened my eyes about Giga. I kind of thought he was really overhyped, and I still do, but I thought he was like really, really overhyped and overrated. And then Omar Morales, he looked good. He outstruck him in all 3 rounds. He outstruck him a lot in that 3rd round. And that was kind of a thing about Giga Chikadze is he did, show to slow down in those 3rd rounds against Brandon Davis. I believe he lost that 3rd round against Jamal Emerson. He lost that 3rd round. And on the Contender Series, he lost the 3rd round and got submitted as well. So it was nice to see Giga, show some improvements in that cardio and put a whooping. He put a whooping on Omar Morales in that 3rd round. So, yeah, I think Giga's coming along here. It's a really good fight. Giga, you making a ton of improvements, and Edson Barboza, veteran. It's going to be a fun fight. Uncle Weezy, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. It's striker versus striker, so it'll probably take place like 80% in control time positions, like the Kelleher fight last night. He's a lay and pray grappler right now, and now Mark Madsen's the striker. So you just never know how these things are going to turn out. But we do believe that this is going to take place on the feet, right? I mean,
yes.
At least we hope so, because that's why this is a main event, because we get to see a great striker like Edson Barboza, who in his 25 fights has faced 88 takedown attempts. I mean, everybody's trying to take this guy down, but Giga Chikadze doesn't shoot for takedowns, so that's good. We might get to see these guys on the feet, scrapping it out. I can't wait for this one. So if we look at the measurables, Edson Barboza, there's not really an advantage either way here. Edson Barboza's got a 1-inch reach advantage, and Chikadze's 3 years younger and 1 inch taller. In terms of experience, obviously, the experience edge is going to be going to Edson here. He's got 16 more professional fights, 200 more minutes of cage time, almost 7 more years in professional mixed martial arts, 18 more fights at the UFC level, and he's been fighting killers the entire time. Over 200 more minutes in the UFC cage, a 64% finish rate as a pro, 59% of that by knockout. Chikadze's got extensive pro kickboxing career, 9 of 13 pro wins inside the distance, 8 pro wins are by knockout, and 3 of Barboza's 9 pro losses are by knockout. So there could be a potential knockout in this fight. In terms of striking, these guys are both fantastic strikers. Barboza has tons of power, fantastic leg kicks. He's landing 4.15 significant strikes a minute, and he absorbs 4.15. A 1.17 knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. That's averaging 0.73 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And that's in a 25 fight sample size in the lightweight and featherweight division. To be landing a knockdown on over 1% of your significant strikes, it shows that you have vicious power. Edson Barboza has absorbed 1,189 strikes in the UFC, and he's only been knocked down 3 times. So this dude's got a serious chin. 3 times in 25 fights and almost 1,200 significant strikes absorbed. And Edson Barboza has been knocked out in 3 of his 9 UFC losses. So you can crack his chin. It's just very, very hard. I mean, the guy is such a good striker. And then Chikadze is an elite kickboxer in his own right. He's got lethal body kicks. We know what the Giga kick did to Cub Swanson. He's landing 3.55 significant strikes a minute and only absorbing 2.67. So great ratios and differences there. A 1.42% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed. So even though Barboza is a killer and he's got a ton of power, he's only landing 1.17%. For Chikadze, it's 1.42%. So he's averaging 0.76 knockdowns per 15 minutes, a fantastic 60.56% striking defense, and he's never been knocked down in the UFC either. In terms of grappling, I really hope that this fight doesn't take place in the grappling. Neither one of these guys grapples much. Both prefer to strike. 79% of Barboza's fights take place at striking range, and for Chikadze, it's 89%. So it's pretty safe to say that this fight should take place at the striking range. However, if it does go to the grappling, we see Chikadze attempting about 1 takedown per fight, Barboza attempting less than 1 takedown per fight. Barboza's got 8 of 18 takedowns for 44.44%. Chikadze's got 2 out of 6. But both of these guys really not controlling their opponents at all. It's 6.64% control time for Barboza, 2.95 for Chikadze. Chikadze, a 69% takedown defense. He's successfully defended 20 of 29 takedowns attempt against him. He's getting taken down 1.71 times per 15 minutes, and he's been controlled about 2.5 more times than he controls his opponents at 8.77%. Very small. And for Barboza, he's getting out-controlled about 2-1, 6.64% to 13.94%. He's got 78% takedown defense, very solid, only getting taken down 0.99 times for 15 minutes. So, I don't expect to take this to wind up in the grappling, but we do know that Edson Barboza is the more well-rounded mixed martial artist. He's got a jiu-jitsu pedigree that's better than Chikadze's, at least. And he's fought so many grapplers in his UFC tenure that you just believe that if the fight does go to the ground, that Barboza will be the one that has the advantage. The striking is going to be very close. And then if we look at the strength of schedule, Edson has fought, beaten, and lost to the tougher, more experienced UFC competition, period. It's not even close. Edson Barboza has been around longer. He's fought a higher percentages of his career at the highest level, and he's fought the much tougher dudes. In addition to that, Chikadze's the natural featherweight, while we know that Edson Barboza fought most of his career at lightweight, so he should be the bigger dude here. Yeah, I'm leaning Edson Barboza. The fact that he's 35 years old is troubling, but Chikadze's 32. So it's not like Chikadze's this young buck that's coming in here to beat the old lion. Chikadze's almost as old as Edson, and he's just got way less mixed martial arts experience. Very close in the striking, in my opinion. But I think Barboza has a grappling advantage, but I don't know if that means anything. I'm picking Edson Barboza, but man, this is a good fight. I might just sit back and watch this one. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I like Barboza as well. I mean, Giga's probably going to be one of the more popular picks of the weekend. I get it. He's a very fun and exciting fighter, but I still have some question marks. And I was the biggest Giga Chikadze hater out there, and he definitely made me eat my words more often than not. But I mean, you take a look at it, just it's crazy. 3 years ago, this guy is getting taken down 4 times and getting submitted in the 3rd round against Austin Springer just 3 years ago, and then comes into the UFC, loses a 3rd round to Brandon Davis in a fight where he gets taken down 3 times. After that, comes into the UFC, he's still in the UFC, but takes on Jamal Emerson, and he gets outlanded 54-38 against Jamal Emerson. He does outland Emerson 13-8 in the 1st round, but gets outlanded 14-12 in the 2nd round, and Emerson outlands him 32-13 in that 3rd round. And then after that, beats Erwin Rivera, nothing to really, look at there. And then after that does beat Omar Morales. And this is what kind of opened my eyes about him. Like I said, very good performance there, but still big difference between like an Omar Morales, a Jamie Simmons, and Erwin Rivera, than an Edson Barboza. Like, listen to some of the guys that Barboza's been facing. Beat Shane Burgos, beat Makwan Amarikani, lost to Dan Egan in a fight that I thought he won. Paul Felder, Justin Gaethje, Dan Hooker, Kevin Lee, Khabib, Beneil Dariush. I mean, you name it. He's been fighting the best of the best guys for so long, where Giga's arguably losing to a Jamal Emerson, where Giga's, dropping a 3rd round to Brandon Davis. So it's crazy to think about. And, I think the fight will, play out close. The line is interesting here. I really expected Barboza to be a favorite here, but I guess I'm not surprised. Giga has a lot of hype on him. Barboza opening up -150. He is currently -120. Giga Chikadze opened up +130. It's currently +100. I see Barboza on some books -106. I see Barboza -105. I will be picking Barboza. Don't know if I'm going to bet it. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where I'm going to be very confident in Edson Barboza, and Giga's just going to, get me again, because it's hard to deny that Giga is improving a ton each and every fight. Whereas Edson Barboza, we're probably going to see, him slow down at some point. I mean, he's 35 years old, so I like Barboza, but I don't know if I'll get there from a betting perspective. Fight goes to decision -105. Fight doesn't go to decision -135. No strong lean there. I could see, either or, but for me, I'll pick Barboza. Just don't know if I'm going to bet it. I'm going to kind of sit back and wait. If I can get Barboza at plus money, then I'll be a little bit tempted. But for now, I'm probably going to sit back and watch it. Any other final thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I like Barboza. I'm not really going to touch those time props because, we haven't seen Giga fight 5 yet, so it's hard to know. Is he going to have the conditioning to go all 5 against Barboza? That's a big missing piece of information that leads me to not want to bet the time props here. But yeah, I do like Barboza quite a bit. And like you, Brady, I've been on the wrong side of these Giga bets for a long time, man. I was big on Jamal Emerson because after we saw Austin Springer submit, Giga, and then you see a Jamal Emerson who's, a state champion wrestler, and the guy is a legit, damn good MMA wrestler. And then, he doesn't shoot the takedowns. And then, it leaves this bad taste in your mouth where you're like, even though Chikadze won the fight, you're like, dude, if Emerson had an ounce of brains, he would have been taking him down from the beginning. And then you see these other guys, they're not shooting takedowns, No, it seems like nobody wants to put Giga where he's uncomfortable, and that he's been handed some of these wins. And it's frustrating because every time you short him, you're wind up, you're getting shaved, So I'm leaning Barboza here. If he goes plus money, I'll bet him. And I might even bet him at this line. Maybe there is too much hype on Chikadze, but I do think that Edson's the more experienced, the more well-rounded guy. I think he's got just as much power, but he's just seen a much higher level of mixed martial artist here, a natural lightweight instead of a featherweight. There's a lot of reasons to like Barboza here.
100%. I mean, wins over Erwin Rivera and Jamie Simmons, they just don't impress me. Whereas, Barboza win over Shane Burke, that impresses me. I win over Makwan, not horrible. He won over against Dan Ige, in my opinion. So, yeah, competition is night and day. This is going to be the toughest test of Giga Chikadze's career by a significant margin, a very significant margin here. So I'm with you. Tempted on the Barboza side. I'm going to sit back and see where that line goes. I feel like throughout the week, I'm hoping more money comes in on Giga because he's a fan favorite, all that, very flashy guy. I'm sure the highlights are going to be on Twitter and all that all week. So maybe the line does push Barboza towards an underdog there. And at that point, I'm going to be very, very tempted. So I just want to remind you guys that me and Uncle Weezy are going to do a main event deep dive on my channel. We're going to record that tonight. Should be out tomorrow morning, so go check that out on DFS by the numbers. Again, check out our DraftKings show Tuesday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Me, Uncle Weezy, Z, and Luke from Sparring with Reality. Go check that out. If you guys can leave a like, as always, that is much, much appreciated. Also, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you have not yet. I will be finishing up some tape tonight, working all day tomorrow, and getting ready for my prediction video. That'll be out Tuesday morning. My DraftKings video will be out shortly after Tuesday evening. And then Friday, I have a live stream on my channel, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And then Saturday, I'm looking to do a brand new show on my channel 1 hour prior to the prelims. I'm not going to announce what it is yet, but it's a show that I think a lot of people are going to like. As far as you, Uncle Weezy, let them know where they can find you and what you have going on for this week.
You can find me on Twitter at MMA Weezy. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, where I do balls deep breakdowns of at least 3 of these fights every week, where we go about 45 minutes into all the stats, look at all the angles, and try to give you as much information about 3 fights. I'm also doing a new show on my channel every week. On Tuesday nights, it'll be after the Contender Series going forward. It's called Just the Tip. It's a sensual prelude to the Balls Deep breakdown, where we're going to do a full card breakdown every Tuesday night on my channel. And I'm also planning a very special Balls Deep breakdown this week, where I'm going to be working with Monk MMA Maddox in order to do a special Balls Deep breakdown on my favorite fight of the card, Daniel Rodriguez versus Kevin Lee. Stay tuned for that one. Thanks for spending your Sunday night with Brady and I. Thanks for hanging out over here at Pub Sports Radio. I love each and every one of you guys that comes out here to hang out with us. God bless. Let's make some money this week.
Yes, sir. Okay, there we go. Thank you guys so much. Leave a like on your way out. We will talk to you very, very soon, and we will see you throughout the week. And then next week for Stat Diggers, of course, every Sunday, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 7:15. So that's about it, guys. Good luck, and we will see you soon. Peace.